My mic was muted. Hi, what's up? What's up? I can't figure out the music with the copyright stuff, so I figured I need a better intro. But I haven't had time to do a better intro. So it's just me jumping on immediately, which I guess works. How's everyone going? We got a lot of reading today too, so. All right, people have been saying that, whatchamacallit, the Scarlet Pimpernel gets better the more you read, so I'm excited to get through more chapters, because I wasn't that impressed the first 4 chapters, but it's only the first 4 or 5 chapters, so. Oh, yes, Meg. Nice. What's up, guys? Hello. Yeah, everyone like the stream if you're here. And we'll start reading in 15 minutes. Maybe less, maybe like 10 minutes, because we do have a little bit of reading today. I think next book is going to be A Tale of Two Cities. I keep thinking about it, and I feel like we'll go with the French Revolution a little bit. But I really want to do a Dickens, and I feel like A Tale of Two Cities is the shortest Dickens that's like manageable before we jump into some of the longer stuff. So I think that's what we're going to do next. But I'm not positive. We always change last minute, so we'll see. Bonjour. Bonjour. Whoa, Nemo. I mean, I have a Lord of the Rings stream Sunday afternoon. What time are you going to do your stream? I'm probably going to read the Stewards chapter, or the Stewards section, which isn't that long, so it's probably going to be like an hour and a half. Kidding. It's probably going to be 5 hours. Nemo, what are you streaming for that? Is it just going to be you and Roman chatting? That sounds great. I love that. Wes, don't lick that. You gotta let it be. He has a little hot spot in his paw, or in his like elbow. The dogs have elbows, so he's been licking it like crazy, and it's just getting worse. You can't lick it. You just gotta let it go. He also got a haircut the other day, and he looked crazy. Ooh, just you, Nemo. What are you gonna do for the stream? I love that. Are you gonna read it? You've already read it. Is it does he have a new one coming out? When's the next one coming out? How many books does he have for the DCC? I have too many questions about this. What's the series called? Is it called the Dungeon Crawler series? The Carl series? Anybody read that in here besides Nemo, Lana, and a few others? They're fun books. Not the best written books, but they're really fun. I'm really enjoying them. I like a fun little read. After reading, I'm doing like Lord of the Rings, A Game of Thrones, and the Scarlet Pimpernel, and like classics. So we're reading like very high literature right now. And I think A Game of Thrones is phenomenal, by the way. I am so into A Game of Thrones. But it is so fun to just have like a mindless read. I'm listening to it. So I just go for walks and pop it in, and it's just like you pick it up right where you left off. It's really fun. It's like a weird series, to be completely honest. There's 7 books in the DCC series. Okay, but does he have more? Is he planning 10? Wasn't he planning 10? Scarlet Pimpernel more like a DCC than a GOT. Okay. The 8th is coming this spring. Oh, Nemo, you only finished the first book? Interesting. So you don't know the second or anything after? Oh, that's going to be fun. I love that. I'm excited to hear. I'm excited that I'm a little bit ahead of you and that I get to hear your predictions. This is going to be fun. Excellent. Nemo, maybe I'll do a stream to watch your stream. Mrs. Polifax series by Dorothy Pullman. Miss Marple meets CIA. Interesting. I think my mom loves the Miss Marple. Or Miss Marple is that a BBC series as well? Did they make it into a BBC series? I feel like I've heard that before. I think my mom likes that. Miss Marple. There's another one. Yeah, stream session. Okay, yeah, I think she likes Miss Marple. There's some really good you cried reading parts of the 6th book? No way. Okay, if anybody who's a DCC person, tell me favorite of the 7 so far. Favorite of the 7. I think the 2nd book was maybe not as good as the 1st. But there were maybe some better moments in it. I really did like the 1st book. And then, yeah, definitely gonna do some Agatha Christie at some point. That'd be really fun. I'm definitely into that idea. The books get better. 5, 6, and 7 are the best. Love that. Good. Okay. Excellent. I have a hard time visualizing some of the stuff in the books, but that's okay. I don't need to have everything visualized in my mind. It's just still fun. Also, so fascinating this. I didn't know, but my dad's reading Scarlet Pimpernel too. And he is a researcher. He loves a little research. And I didn't know that there's like 17 other Scarlet Pimpernel books, that this is the first in like a series. That's crazy. Are we gonna have to do our very own Scarlet Pimpernel own full channel? Just do 17 of them back to back to back. I have to say I'm not liking the book that much to want to do a specific channel only for the Scarlet Pimpernel, but maybe I will at the end. Maybe I'll really love it at the end, and we'll see. How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Also, yes. Thank you. Like the stream, everyone. We're going to start reading in 3 minutes. That's funny that you didn't realize there were more. I didn't know there were more either. It's kind of fun. I like that. I like that there are more. Okay, I got a really sharp pencil this morning. Almost too sharp. Okay. Scarlet Pimpernel. Okay, so really quick recap, because I am trying to hammer out the plot in my head for the Scarlet Pimpernel. We have the Comtesse, who has a daughter, and who is the new person that came in? What's Marguerite? That's right. Marguerite. And she came in, and they had a little standoff, didn't like each other. And then all of a sudden, a tall and very richly dressed figure appeared in the doorway. I don't know who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. I don't know. Comtesse has a daughter and a son. That's right. Okay. Yeah, I got to get all the characters in my head correct and well ordered. All right, guys, we got a lot of reading today, so I'm just gonna jump in and get started. How many pages did we read last time? Well, actually, we kind of read the same. We're about 30. Today we're doing about 35. I like the chapters are short. Yeah, we're doing 30, a little bit, around 35, 34. 34 pages. Yes. Don't watch the news. Come hang out and read classic literature. Milady de Winter type character? What's that? Milady de Winter. I should read the whole book in like a hick southern accent and say all the French, like Coterrier and Blakeney. No, I'm not going to do that. That'd be crazy. All right, here we go. This is chapter 6. An exquisite of 92. Oh, she's from the Three Musketeers. That book's on the list too. Although that's a really long one. And that's going to be after. That'll be in a few years. We'll just say that. All right, chapter 6. Sir Percy Blakeney, as the chronicles of the time inform us, was in this year of grace, 1792, still a year or two on the right side of the 30. So he's 32. What's the right side of 30? Is that the right side being you're younger? Being like, this is the right way to go? Or like direction right? You're on the right side of 30, which means you're 32. He's 28. What? That's the dumbest. I'm sorry. That's the dumbest way to say someone's age. The right side of 32. Yeah, it depends on if you're a man or a woman. Young. You guys thought younger? Okay. Man. Tall, above the average, even for an Englishman. Broad-shouldered and massively built. He would have been called unusually good-looking, but for a certain lazy expression in his deep-set blue eyes, and that perpetual inane laugh which seemed to disfigure his strong, clearly cut mouth. Wait, I'm a little confused. Marguerite is French, and she married an Englishman. Correct. Am I wrong? Okay, thank you. Good. I just wanted to clear that up in my head. I feel like I was just driving myself crazy for a second there. Okay. All right. Married an English noble. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It was nearly a year ago now that Sir Percy Blakeney, Bart, what does the Bart mean? Bartholomew? Bartamius Crouch? Bart? A baronet. Okay. Is that just like a French noble? I think we've already been over this, but my memory is not good. Baronet. Okay, thank you. Lowest range of nobility. Can someone give me the rank? Can someone give me all the nobility of France? Is English rank. Okay. Lowest rank of nobility. Can you guys give me like the ladder of nobility? I'm going to keep reading and then I'm going to come back to that. One of the richest men in England. It's interesting he's the lowest nobility and he's one of the richest. Leader of all the fashions. An intimate friend of the Prince of Wales. Had astonished fashionable society in London and Bath by bringing home from one of his journeys ahead a beautiful, fascinating, clever French wife. He, the sleepiest, dullest, most Britisher that had ever set a pretty woman yawning. I like that. Britisher. Had secured a brilliant matrimonial prize for which, as all chronicles aver, there had been many competitors. Marguerite St. Just had first made her debut in artistic Parisian circles at the very moment when the greatest social upheaval the world has ever known was taking place within its very walls. Scarcely 18, lavishly gifted with beauty and talent, chaperoned only by a young and devoted brother. She had soon gathered round her, in her charming apartment in the Rue Richelieu, a cotillier which was as brilliant as it was exclusive. Exclusive, that is to say, only from one point of view. Marguerite St. Just was, from a principle and by conviction, a Republican. Equality of birth was her motto. Inequality of fortune was in her eye a mere untoward accident. But the only inequality she admitted was that of talent. Money and titles may be hereditary, she would say, but brains are not. And thus her charming salon was reserved for originality and intellect, for brilliance and wit, for clever men and talented women, and the entrance into it was soon looked upon in the world of intellect, which even in those days, and in those troubled times, found its pivot in Paris, as the seal to an artistic career. Can someone tell me? Wait, Justice? Guys, my pronunciation is gonna suck. So I like that you guys are helping me, but we're not gonna. My pronunciation of French in particular is gonna be particularly bad. When they say Republican, okay, hold on real quick. Actually, it goes King, Queen, Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, Baron. And a baron is a baronet because a baron is a female baron. I think so. Maybe? No, Bart. Bart is just French baron. Okay. Republican is revolutionary. Okay, thank you. I needed to figure that out. What is there? Republican is someone who is a part of the revolution. Oh, baronet, like a little mini baron. Talk to me about Republican here. You favor the French Republic as opposed to the monarchy. Okay, so are there Republicans versus monarchists? Is that what's going to kind of be in this book? I have to go watch the fast history of the French Revolution. Someone posted that in the Discord, and I haven't gotten around to watching that yet. Maybe I'll watch that after this so I can kind of like get good. Oh, bummer. One of my leaves from my fiddly fig just fell off. Look how big this thing is. That just fell off. That's sad. All right, well, let's keep reading. Republicans versus monarchists is a good way to phrase it. Okay, or at least in favor of the Republic. In favor of Rev? Okay. All right, I think so. I think we'll keep going. I'll get it I'll ask questions as I go. Clever men, distinguished men, and even men of exalted station formed a perpetual and brilliant court around the fascinating young actress of the Comédie Française. And she glided through Republican, revolutionary, bloodthirsty Paris like a shining comet with a trail behind her of all that was most distinguished, most interesting in intellectual Europe. Then the climax came. Some smiled indulgently and called it an artistic eccentricity. Others looked upon it as a wise provision, in view of the many events which were crowding thick and fast in Paris just then. But to all, the real motive of the climax remained a puzzle and a mystery. Anyway, Marguerite St. Just married Sir Percy Blakeney one fine day, just like that, without any warning to her friends, without something de contrat or dîner de fiançailles, or other appurtenances of a fashionable French wedding. Soirée, I'm guessing. How that stupid, dull Englishman ever came to be admitted within the intellectual circle which revolved round the cleverest woman in Europe, as her friends unanimously called her, no one ventured to guess. A golden key is said to open every door. Asserted the more malignantly inclined. I feel like he is the Scarlet Pimpernel. I think it's building it up that he's a Scarlet Pimpernel. That's my guess at the moment. Enough. She married him, and the cleverest woman in Europe had linked her fate to that deemed idiot. To that D-E-M-M-E-D? Demed? 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 Idiot? What's that word? Damned idiot. Interesting. Is that French for idiot? Where does that come from? Never heard that before. And not even her most intimate friends could assign to this strange step any other motive than that of supreme eccentricity. Those friends who knew laughed to scorn the idea that Marguerite St. Just had married a fool for the sake of the worldly advantages with which he might endow her. They knew, as a matter of fact, that Marguerite St. Just cared nothing about money, and still less about a title. Moreover, there were at least half a dozen other men in the cosmopolitan world equally well-born, if not so wealthy, as Blakeney, who would have been only too happy to give Marguerite St. Just any position she might choose to covet. With an English accent. Damned idiot. Okay. As for Sir Percy himself, he was universally voted to be totally unqualified for the onerous post he had taken upon himself. His chief qualification for it seemed to consist in his blind adoration for her, his great wealth, and the high favor in which he stood at the English court. But London society thought that, taking into consideration his own intellectual limitations, it would have been wiser on his part had he bestowed the worldly advantages upon a less brilliant and witty wife. Although lately he had been so prominent a figure in fashionable English society, he had spent most of his early life abroad. His father, the late Sir Algernon Blakeney, had the terrible misfortune of seeking an idolized young wife become hopelessly insane after 2 years of happy married life. Percy had just been born when the Lady Blakeney fell into a prey to the terrible malady in which those days was looked upon as hopelessly incurable and nothing short of a curse of God upon the entire family. Tuberculosis? What does she have? She just went insane? Sir Algernon took his afflicted young wife abroad, and there presumably Percy was educated and grew up between an imbecile mother and a distracted father until he attained his majority. Postpartum depression? But that's 2 years, though. Oh, 2 years after a happy married life. Okay, yeah, maybe. The death of his parents following close upon one another left him a free man. As Sir Algernon had led a forcibly simple and retired life, the large Blakeney fortune had increased tenfold. Yeah, I know. It does feel like a weird trope in this. Mysterious, womanly, hysterical madness. Majority is coming of age. Okay, thank you. Sir Percy Blakeney had traveled a great deal abroad before he brought home his beautiful young French wife. The fashionable circles of the time were ready to receive them both with open arms. Sir Percy was rich. His wife was accomplished. The Prince of Wales took a very great liking to them both. Within 6 months, they were the acknowledged leaders of fashion and of style. Sir Percy's coats were the talk of town. His inanities were quoted, his foolish laugh copied by the gilded youth at Almack's or the Mall. Everyone knew that he was hopelessly stupid, but then that was scarcely to be wondered at, seeing that all the Blakeneys for generations had been notoriously dull, and that his mother had died an imbecile. I feel like this is just leading me to think that Blakeney is the Scarlet Pimpernel. He's too stupid to not be the Scarlet Pimpernel. Almack's is a fashion club. Okay. Thank you. Thus society accepted him, petted him, made much of him, since his horses were the finest in the country. His fetes and wines, fetes and wines, the most sought after. As for his marriage with the cleverest woman in Europe, well, the inevitable came with sure and rapid footsteps. No one pitied him, since his fate was of his own making. There were plenty of young ladies in England of high birth and good looks who would have been quite willing to help him spend the Blakeney fortune, while smiling indulgently at his inanities and his good-humored foolishness. Moreover, Sir Percy got no pity, because he seemed to require none. He seemed very proud of his clever wife, and to care little that she took no pains to disguise that good-natured contempt which she evidently felt for him, and that she even amused herself by sharpening her ready wits at his expense. There's something weird going on. Why did she marry him? Is she a gold digger? They're a weird couple. I for sure think that he's a Scarlet Pimpernel. It's true. He's described as tall and massive. Could you disguise as an old woman? That's a great point. I don't know how, but maybe. But then Blakeney was really too stupid to notice the ridicule with which his clever wife covered him. And if his matrimonial relations with the fascinating Parisian had not turned out all that his hopes and his dog-like devotion for her had pictured, society could never more than vaguely guess at it. In his beautiful house at Richmond, he played second fiddle to his clever wife with imperturbable bonhomie. What is that word? With imperturbable bonhomie. He lavished jewels and luxuries of all kind upon her, which he took with inimitable grace, dispensing the hospitality of his superb mansion with the same graciousness with which she had welcomed the intellectual coterie of Paris. Good humor, okay. Ridicule is never nice, but it can be fun. I mean, like, he's kind of dumb enough that he doesn't know that his wife ridicules him, which I guess can be kind of sweet. Oversimplified History Channel is great. If there's any good French Revolution on that one, let me know. Physically, Sir Percy Blakeney was undeniably handsome, always accepting the lazy, bored look which was habitual to him. He was always irreproachably dressed, and wore the exaggerated incroyable fashions which he had just crept across from Paris to England, with the perfect good taste innate to an English gentleman. On this special afternoon in September, in spite of the long journey by coach, in spite of rain and mud, his coat set irreproachably across his fine shoulders, his hand looked almost femininely white as they emerged through the billowy frills of the finest Mechlin lace. Mechlin lace. The extravagantly short-waisted satin coat, wide-lapelled waistcoat, and tight-fitting striped breeches set off his massive figure to perfection, and in repose one might have admired so fine a specimen of English manhood, until the foppish ways, the affected movements, the perpetual inane laugh, brought one's admiration of Sir Percy Blakeney to an abrupt close. He had lolled into the old-fashioned inn parlor, shaking the wet off his fine overcoat, then putting up a gold-rimmed eyeglass to his lazy blue eye. He surveyed the company, upon whom an embarrassed silence had suddenly fallen. "How do Tony? How do folks?" he said, recognizing the two young men and shaking them by the hand. "Zounds, my dear fellow," he added, smothering a slight yawn. "Did you ever catch such a beastly day? Demn this climate." With a quaint little laugh, half of embarrassed and half of sarcasm, Marguerite had turned toward her husband and was surveying him from head to foot with an amused little twinkle in her merry blue eyes. La, said Sir Percy after a moment or two's silence, as no one offered any comment. How sheepish you all look. What's up? They're almost like the opposite, or the opposites of the Bennets, where the husband's kind of this like bimbo and the wife is like super intelligent and like whip smart. A himbo. I've never heard that before. Oh, nothing, Sir Percy, replied Marguerite, with a certain amount of gaiety, which, however, sounded somewhat forced. Nothing to disturb your equanimity. Equanimity. Gosh. Only an insult to your wife. The laugh which accompanied this remark was evidently intended to reassure Sir Percy as to the gravity of the incident. It apparently succeeded in that, for echoing the laugh, he rejoined placidly. La, my dear, you don't say so. Begad, who was the bold man who dared to tackle you, eh? Lord Tony tried to interpose, but had no time to do so, for the young Vicomte had already quickly stepped forward. She's still in the room? Monsieur, he said, prefixing his little speech with an elaborate bow. Oh, this is the son. Okay, yeah. Okay, that helps. Thank you. My mother. Oh, there you go. The Comtesse de Tournay de Bassarive has offended Madame, who I see is your wife. I cannot ask your pardon for my mother. What she does is right in my eyes, but I am ready to offer you the unusual reparations between men of honor. How old is this kid? Yeah, Nemo, I'm kind of with you too. Oh, he's 19. Interesting. I thought they were young. Okay, I missed that. He's 19. I'm like, why is an 8-year-old talking like this? He's not. Okay, interesting. I have a note here that says Sir Percy Blakeney is the pimp. I should probably write that out a little bit better. The young man drew up his slim stature to its full height and looked very enthusiastic, very proud, and very hot as he gazed at 6 foot odd of gorgeousness, as represented by Sir Percy Blakeney Bart. Lud, Sir Andrew, said Marguerite, with one of her merry infectious laughs. Look on that pretty picture, the English turkey and the French bantam. The smile was quite perfect, and the English turkey looked down with complete bewilderment on the dainty little French bantam, which hovered quite threateningly around him. Ah, sir, said Percy at last, putting up his eyeglass and surveying the young Frenchman with undisguised wonderment. Where in the cuckoo's name did you learn to speak English? Monsieur, protested the Vicomte, somewhat abashed at the way his warlike attitude had been taken by the ponderous-looking Englishman. I protest 'tis marvellous, continued Percy imperturbably. Demmed marvellous. Don't you think so, Tonier? I vow I can't speak the French lingo like that. What? Nay, I'll vouch for that, rejoined Marguerite. Sir Percy has a British accent you could cut with a knife. Monsieur, interposed the Vicomte earnestly, and in still more broken English, I fear you have not understand. I offer you only possible reparations among gentlemen. I don't like when they do weird spellings for different words. Like this is like, I guess, a French accent, but let me just imagine in my head what he sounds like in French. Maybe. I don't know. I'm on the fence about some of that kind of stuff. Why the devil is that? Asked Sir Percy blandly. My sword, monsieur, replied the Vicomte, who, still bewildered, was beginning to lose his temper. You are a sportsman, Lord Tony, said Marguerite merrily. 10-1 on the little bantam. But Sir Percy was staring sleepily at the Vicomte for a moment or two. Though his partly closed heavy lids, he then smothered a yawn, stretching his long limbs, and turned leisurely away. Lud love you, sir, he muttered good-humouredly. Damned young man, what is the good of your sword to me? What the Vicomte thought and felt at that moment, when that long-limbed Englishman treated him with such marked insolence, might fill volumes of sound reflections. What he said resolved itself into a single articulate word, for all others were choked in his throat by his surging wrath. A duel, monsieur, he stammered. I'm a little confused. How did this progress to a duel? It seemed like the Vicomte was like, let me extend my hand and say, like a greeting that befits gentlemen. And then all of a sudden, the Vicomte or Percy's like looking him up and down. And then, oh, Marguerite insulted the Comtesse. I thought she was insulting the greeting that befits a gentleman was dueling. Interesting. Gotcha. Wow, I missed a lot. His mother insulted Percy's wife. His duel is over his wife calling his mom a woman instead of a lady. Oh my gosh. Get over yourself, people. This is crazy. Come on, people. Let's keep reading. Like the duel just came out of nowhere to me. So, all right, here we go. Once more Blakeney turned, and from his high altitude looked down on the choleric little man before him. But not even for a second did he seem to lose his own imperturbable good humor. He laughed his own pleasant and inane laugh, and burying his slender long hands into the capacious pockets of his overcoat, he said leisurely, "A duel. Is that what he meant? Odd fish, you are a bloodthirsty young ruffian. Do you want to make a hole in a law-abiding man? As for me, sir, I never fight duels," he added, as he placidly sat down and stretched his long, lazy legs out before him. Demmed uncontrollable things, duels, ain't they, Tony? Now the Vicomte had no doubt vaguely heard that in England the fashion of the dueling amongst gentlemen had been suppressed by the law with a very stern hand. Still, to him, a Frenchman, whose notions of bravery and honor were based upon the code that had centuries of tradition to back it, the spectacle of a gentleman actually refusing to fight a duel was little short of an enormity. In his mind, he vaguely pondered whether he should strike that long-legged Englishman in the face and call him a coward, or whether such conduct in the lady's presence might be deemed ungentlemanly when Marguerite happily interposed. "I pray you, Lord Tony," she said in a gentle, sweet, musical voice of hers, "I pray you play the peacemaker. The child is bursting with rage, and," she added with a soupçon of dry sarcasm, "might do Sir Percy an injury." She laughed a mocking little laugh, which, however, did not in the least disturb her husband's placid equanimity. "The British turkey has had the day," she said. "Sir Percy would provoke all the saints in the calendar to keep his temper the while." But already Blakeney, good-humoured as ever, had joined in the laugh against himself. I like that he's able to laugh at himself. "Dem smart that now, wasn't it?" he said, turning pleasantly to the Vicomte. "Clever woman, my wife. You will find that, out if you live long enough in England. Sir Percy is in the right, Vicomte. Here interposed Lord Antony, laying a friendly hand on the young Frenchman's shoulder. It would hardly be fitting that you should commence your career in England by provoking him to a duel. For a moment longer the Vicomte hesitated. Then, with a slight shrug of the shoulders, directed against the extraordinary code of honor prevailing in his fog-ridden island, he said with becoming dignity, "Ah, well, if monsieur is satisfied, I have no griefs. You, my lord, are our protector. If I have done wrong, I withdraw myself." "I do," rejoined Blakeney, with a long sigh of satisfaction. "Withdraw yourself over there, demmed excitable little puppy," he added under his breath. "Faith, folks, if that's a specimen of the goods you and your friends bring over from France, my advice to you is drop 'em mid-channel, my friend, or I shall have to see old Pitt about it. Get him to clap on a prohibitive tariff and put you in the stocks and you smuggle." Again, I feel like it's leading me to think that this guy is the Pimpernel, because he's just almost trying too hard to say ridiculous things. La, Sir Percy, your chivalry misguides you, said Marguerite coquettishly. "You forget that you yourself have imported one bundle of goods from France." Blakeney slowly rose to his feet, and making a deep, elaborate bow before his wife, he said with consummate gallantry, "I had the pick of the market, madame, and my taste is unerring." "More so than your chivalry, I fear," she retorted sarcastically. Odds life, my dear. Be reasonable. Do you think I am going to allow my body to be made a pincushion of by every little frog-eater who don't like the shape of your nose?" "Lud, Sir Percy," laughed Lady Blakeney, as she bobbed him a quaint and pretty curtsy. "You need not be afraid. 'Tis not the men who dislike the shape of my nose." "Afraid be demmed. Do you impugn my bravery, madame? I don't patronize the ring for nothing, do I, Tony? I've put up the fists with Red Sam before now, and he didn't get it all his own way either." "'Sfaith, Sir Percy," said Marguerite, with a long and merry laugh that went echoing along the old oak rafters of the parlor, "I would have seen you then. Ha, 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 you must have looked a pretty picture. And to be afraid of a little French boy. Ha, 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 ha." "Ha, ha," echoed Sir Percy, good-humoredly. "La, madame, you honor me. Zooks, folks, mark ye that. I have made my wife laugh. The cleverest woman in Europe. Odds fish. We must have a bowl on that." And he tapped vigorously on the table near him. "Hey, Jelly, quick, man, here's Jelly." Harmony was once more restored. Mr. Jellyband, with a mighty effort, recovered himself from the many emotions he had experienced with the last half hour. "A bowl of punch, jelly hot and strong, eh?" said Sir Percy. His wits, the wits that have just made a clever woman laugh, must be whetted. Ha, 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 hasten, my good Jelly. "Nay, there is no time, Sir Percy," interposed Marguerite. "The skipper will be here directly, and my brother must get on board, or the Daydream will miss the tide." "Time, my dear. There is plenty of time for any gentleman to get drunk and get on board before the turn of the tide." "I think your ladyship," said Jellyband respectfully, "that the young gentleman is coming along now with Sir Percy's skipper." "That's right," said Blakeney. "Then Armand can take us in the merry bowl. Think you, Tony," he added, turning to the Vicomte, "that the jackanapes of yours will join us in a glass? Tell him we drink in token of reconciliation." "In fact, you are all such merry company," said Marguerite, "that I don't trust you will forgive me if I bid my brother goodbye in another room." It would have been bad form to protest. Both Lord Antony and Sir Andrew felt that Lady Blakeney could not altogether be in tune with them at that moment. Her love for her brother, Armand St. Just, was deep and touching in the extreme. He had just spent a few weeks with her in her English home, and he was going back to serve his country at a moment when death was the usual reward for the most enduring devotion. Sir Percy also made no attempt to detain his wife, with that perfect, somewhat affected gallantry which characterized his every movement. He opened the coffee room door for her, and made her the most approved and elaborate bow, which the fashion of the time dictated as she sailed out of the room, without bestowing on him more than a passing, slightly contemptuous glance. Only Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, whose every thought since he had met Suzanne de Tournay seemed keener, more gentle, more innately sympathetic, noted the curious look of intense longing, of deep and hopeless passion, with which the inane and flippant Sir Percy followed the retreating figure of his brilliant wife. Interesting. So he's like a himbo. He's like a bimbo, but he's also seems deeply in love with his wife. So he's not just a dummy. So hold on, explain to me why this duel is about to take place. I still kind of get it, but where did I miss this? "6 foot out of gorgeousness as represented. Monsieur, my mother has offensed Madame, who I see is your wife. I cannot ask your pardon for my mother. What she does is right in my eyes, but I am ready to offer you the usual reparations between men of honor." Okay. I get it. So the last chapter when they insulted each other, now her son is saying, "Oh, I see that you have a husband now, and I'm ready to fight." Okay, gotcha. I thought there was something in that conversation itself. Okay, I just totally missed. Like, there's the language here is I guess I just need to pay attention more. But the idea, "I am ready to offer you the usual reparations between men of honor." I had no idea what that was, and now I know it's a duel. So I think I was thinking the usual reparations between men of honor is like a handshake and you smoke a cigar together or something like that. Not a duel to kill. Okay. That makes sense. It's crazy that those are the usual reparations. What are we doing, Frenchmen? Come on. Those should not be the usual reparations. Yeah, he's definitely the hothead for sure. The first thing that you say to someone that you just meet who's insulted your mother, who you have no idea who this person is "Let's go and duel." Come on, dude. Get your ducks in a row. All right, chapter 7. Reparations being a handshake is a bit underwhelming. Yeah, but that's probably what we do today. They think Marguerite sent their friends to the guillotine. Very true. Forgot about that too. Okay, that's very valid. So they kind of have reason to be a little peeved. Okay, this is helpful. You guys are the best. All right, let's read chapter 7. Once outside the noisy coffee room, alone in the dimly lighted passage, Marguerite Blakeney seemed to breathe more freely. She heaved a deep sigh, like one who had been long oppressed with the heavy weight of constant self-control, and she allowed a few tears to fall unheeded down her cheeks. Outside, the rain had ceased, and through the swiftly passing clouds, the pale rays of an after-storm sun shone upon the beautiful white coast of Kent, and the quaint irregular houses that clustered round the Admiralty Pier. Marguerite Blakeney stepped onto the porch and looked out to the sea. Silhouetted against the ever-changing sky, a disgraceful schooner, with white sails set, was gently dancing in the breeze. The Daydream it was, Sir Percy Blakeney's yacht, which was ready to take Armand St. Just back to France in the very midst of that seething, bloody revolution which was overthrowing a monarchy, attacking a religion, destroying a society in order to try and rebuild upon the ashes of tradition a new utopia, of which few men dreamed, but which none had the power to establish. In the distance, two figures were approaching the Fisherman's Rest. One, an oldish man with a curious fringe of gray hairs round a rotund and massive chin, and who walked in that peculiar rolling gait which invariably betrays the seafaring man. The other, a young, slight figure, neatly and becomingly dressed, in a dark, many-caped overcoat. He was clean-shaven, and his dark hair was taken well back over a clear and noble forehead. Who are these guys? Armand, said Margaret Blakeney, as soon as she saw him approaching from the distance, and a happy smile shone on her sweet face, even through the tears. A minute or two later, brother and sister were locked in each other's arms, while the old skipper stood respectfully on one side. How much time have we got, Briggs? Asked Lady Blakeney, before M. St. Just need to go on board. We ought to weigh anchor before half an hour, your ladyship, replied the old man, pulling out his grey forelock. Linking her arm in his, Marguerite held her brother toward the cliffs. Half an hour, she said, looking wistfully out to sea. Half an hour more, and you'll be far from me, Armand. Oh, I can't believe you are going, dear. These last few days, whilst Percy has been away, and I've had you all to myself, have slipped by like a dream. I'm not going far, sweet one, said the young man gently. A narrow channel to cross, a few 100 miles of road. I can soon come back. Nay, 'tis not the distance, Armand, but that awful Paris just now. They had reached the edge of the cliff. The gentle sea breeze blew Marguerite's hair about her face and sent the ends of her soft lace fichu waving round her, like a white and supple snake. She tried to pierce the distance far away, beyond which lay the shores of France, that relentless and stern France, which was exacting her pound of flesh, the blood tax from the noblest of her sons. Our own beautiful country, Marguerite, said Armand, who seemed to have divined her thoughts. They are going too far, Armand, she said vehemently. You are a Republican, so am I. We have the same thoughts, the same enthusiasm for liberty and equality. But even you must think that they are going too far. Hush, said Armand instinctively, as he threw a quick, apprehensive glance around him. So Armand is going back as a Republican, not as a monarchist. Okay. So is he going back to Paris to man one of the boundaries? Because it said soldier at first a while ago, and I thought that was maybe he's going to support the monarchy, but it seems like he's going to support the Republic, which is really interesting. You see, you don't think yourself that it is safe even to speak of these things here in England. She clung to him suddenly with strong, almost motherly passion. Don't go, Armand, she begged. Don't go back. What should I do if her voice was choked in sobs? Her eyes, tender, blue, and loving, gazed appealingly at the young man, who in his turn looked steadfastly into hers. Yeah, it's so interesting. But she is a Republican who married nobility. But at the same point, I get that. Gotta get your money. Maybe she's using his money. Maybe Lady Blakeney is the real villain in this. And she's draining her husband's funds in some way to support the revolution. But she doesn't believe in the extremity of their revolution, though. That's the only issue. Which, if you're putting funds into that, that doesn't make sense. Her voice was, read that. You would in any case be my own brave sister, he said gently. Who would remember that? When France is in peril, it is not for her sons to turn their backs on her. Even as he spoke, that sweet childlike smile crept back into her face. Pathetic in the extreme. For it seemed drowned in tears. Oh, Armand, she said quaintly, I sometimes wish you had not so many lofty virtues. I assure you, little sins are far less dangerous and uncomfortable. But you will be prudent, she added earnestly. Little sins are far less dangerous and uncomfortable. Who is she? And what does she want? Yeah, I feel like she's a good Republican. Like, she's someone who just believes in equality. Like, she definitely believes in equality. The revolution in the Republic right now doesn't seem like it's believing in equality. It seems like it just wants to burn everything down. Like the revolution in Paris right now is like the Joker. They just want to watch the world burn. As far as possible, I promise you. Remember, dear, I have only you to care for me. Nay, sweet one, you have other interests now. Percy cares for you. A look of strange wistfulness crept into her eyes as she murmured, He did, once. But surely. There, dear, don't distress yourself on any account. Percy is very good. Time out. Remember, dear, I have only you to care for me. Nay, sweet one, you have other interests now. Percy cares for you. A look of strange wistfulness crept into her eyes as she murmured, He did, once. But surely he cares for her now? There, dear. Don't distress yourself on my account. Percy is very good. Nay, he interrupted energetically. I will distress myself on your account, my Margot. Listen, dear. I have not spoken of these things to you before. Something always seemed to stop me when I wished to question you. But somehow I feel as if I could not go away and leave you now without asking you one question. You need not answer it if you do not wish, he added, as he noted a sudden hard look, almost of apprehension darting through her eyes. What is it? She asked simply. Does Sir Percy Blakeney know that? I mean, does he know the part you played in the arrest of the Marquis de Saint Cyr? She laughed. A mirthless, bitter, contemptuous laugh, which was like a jarring chord in the music of her voice. That I denounced the Marquis de Saint Cyr, you mean, to the tribunal that ultimately sent him and all his family to the guillotine. Yes, he does know. I told him after I married him. You told him all the circumstances, which so completely exonerated you from any blame? It was too late to talk of circumstances. He heard the story from other sources. My confession came too tardily, it seems. I could no longer plead extenuating circumstances. I could not bemoan myself by trying to explain. And And now I have the satisfaction, Armand, of knowing that the biggest fool in England has the most complete contempt for his wife. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. So he's just playing like a proper English gentleman by pretending to really love her. But maybe I think he's deep down still does kind of love her, but he's like furious at her. Interesting. Interesting. Anytime I say interesting, you guys got to take a little sip of something. Preferably water. He completely changed toward her when he found out. Because she told him after they got married. So the act happened before they got married, maybe? Likely. And she tells him after they get married. That's interesting. That's important information to know before you marry someone. So why would she still marry him? Why are they married? She's either a social climber, a gold digger, or she has some kind of good, pure motive. Yeah, she wasn't guilty of that death. But still, she played a part in it. She denounced him to the tribunal. But there's circumstances surrounding that. So what are the circumstances surrounding that? Let's read and find out. I'm sure we won't get it in this chapter, but that feels like a big part of this novel. What are the circumstances around her denouncement of the Marquis de Sancy? How's my French? Mutual pining. She spoke with a vehement bitterness at this time. And Armand Saint Just, who loved her so dearly, felt that he had placed a somewhat clumsy finger upon an aching wound. But Sir Percy loved you, Margot, he repeated gently. Loved me? Well, Armand, I thought at one time that he did. Or I should not have married him, I dare say, she said, speaking very rapidly, as if she were glad at last to lay it down with a heavy burden, which had oppressed her for months. I dare say that even you thought, as everybody else did, that I married Sir Percy because of his wealth, but I assure you, dear, that it was not so. He seemed to worship me with a curious intensity of concentrated passion, which went straight to my heart, that I never loved anyone before, as you know, and I was 24 then. So I naturally thought that it was not in my nature to love. But it has always seemed to me that it must be heavenly to be loved blindly, passionately, wholly, worshipped in fact, and the fact that Percy was slow and stupid was an attraction for me, as I thought he would love me all the more. A clever man would naturally have other interests, an ambitious man other hopes. I thought that fool would worship and think of nothing else. And I was ready to respond, Armand. I would have allowed myself to be worshipped and given infinite tenderness in return. Aww. But this one little thing, I feel, oh man, okay, that's sad. I mean, maybe not the best reasons to get married to someone, to be completely honest. Let's be completely honest about that. But maybe it's better than her being a gold digger. Yeah, exactly. Not exactly good and pure, but I do love that last line though. I mean, it's like surprising. She says this. I thought that fool would worship and think of nothing else. And I was ready to respond, Armand, by her worshiping him? Nope. By allowing myself to be worshipped. And then she says something good. And given infinite tenderness in return. And given, she says, and she would have given infinite tenderness in return, which is kind of sweet. But I mean, it's not like the most healthy beginning to a relationship that I've ever heard. There's some sweetness to it. Yikes. All right, well, we're learning more about them. They're interesting. I feel like part of this novel might be that, again, maybe he's not the Pimpernel anymore in my head. She might be more likely, but I don't think she is in any way. But it could make sense that she would be, and then all of a sudden he falls in love with her because he knows that she's doing this, and the whole novel is about their love reawakening or something. That is the truth. We can take whatever we can get after Wuthering Heights. This is so much better than anything Wuthering Heights would give us. She sighed, and there was a world of disillusionment in that sigh. Armand St. Just had allowed her to speak on without interruption. He listened to her, whilst allowing his own thought to run riot. It was terrible to see a young and beautiful woman, a girl in all but name, standing almost at the threshold of her, yet bereft of hope, bereft of illusions, bereft of those golden and fantastic dreams which had made her youth one long perpetual holiday. Yet perhaps, though he loved his sister dearly, perhaps he understood he had studied men in many countries, men of all ages, men of every grade of social and intellectual status, and inwardly he understood what Marguerite had left unsaid. Granted that Percy Blakeney was dull-witted, but in his slow-going mind there would still be room for that ineradicable pride of a descendant of a long line of English gentlemen. A Blakeney had died on Bosworth Field. Another had sacrificed life and fortune for the sake of a treacherous Stuart. And that same pride, foolishness, and prejudice, as the Republican Armand would call it, must have been stung to the quick on hearing of the sin which lay at Lady Blakeney's door. She had been young, misguided, and ill-advised perhaps. Armand knew that, and those who took advantage of Marguerite's youth, her impulses and imprudence, knew it still better. But Blakeney was slow-witted. He would not listen to circumstances. He only clung to facts. And these had shown him Lady Blakeney denouncing a fellow man to a tribunal that knew no pardon. And the contempt he would feel for the deed she had done, however unwittingly, would kill that same love in him, in which sympathy and intellectuality could never have had part. Yet, even now, his own sister puzzled him. Life and love have such strange vagaries. Could it be that the waning of her husband's love, Marguerite's heart had awakened with love for him? Huh. That's weird. Strange extremes meet in love's pathway. This woman, who had had half intellectual Europe at her feet, might perhaps have set her affections on a fool. Marguerite was gazing out toward the sunset. Armand could not see her face, but presently it seemed to him that something which glittered for a moment in the gold evening light fell from her eyes onto her dainty fichu of lace. He could not broach the subject with her. He knew her strange, passionate nature so well, and knew that reserve which lurked beyond her frank, open ways. They had always been together, these two, for their parents had died when Armand was still a youth, and Marguerite but a child. He, some 8 years her senior, had watched over her until her marriage, had chaperoned her during these brilliant years spent in the flat of the Rue de Richelieu, and had seen her enter upon this new life of hers here in England, with much sorrow and some foreboding. This was his first visit to England since her marriage, and in the few months of her separation had already seemed to have built up a slight thin partition between brother and sister, And some deep, intense love was still there on both sides, but each now seemed to have a secret orchard into which the other dared not penetrate. Interesting. Secrets. There was much Armand St. Just could not tell his sister. The political aspect of the revolution in France was changing almost day. She might not understand how his own views and sympathies might become modified, even as the excess, committed by those who had been his friends, grew in horror and intensity. And Marguerite could not speak to her brother about the secrets of her heart. She hardly understood them herself. She only knew that in the midst of luxury she felt lonely and unhappy. And now Armand was going away. She feared for his safety. She longed for his presence. She would not spoil these last few sadly sweet moments by speaking about herself. She led him gently along the cliffs, then down to the beach. Their arms linked in one another's. They had still so much to say that they just lay outside the secret. They had still so much to say that lay just outside that secret orchard of theirs. Man, I love that. This is really sad. Like, you don't want to waste this time talking about that stuff because you just want to like spend it with the other person. But it's a thing that's burdening them that they really need to talk about. They need to talk about these things with each other. The writing is getting better. And the story itself is getting better too. Like, that's really intriguing to me. That chapter. It's the best chapter so far. I really like that. Yeah, everyone's wearing a mask. Man alive. Also, everyone liked the stream. She's an actress. She went into that scandalous profession from a need to be worshipped. Yeah, very valid. Very valid. Yeah, we're actually getting to the story now. The story's getting better because we're actually in the story. Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue for this. I'm liking this. All right, chapter 8. I think chapter 8, it's pretty much average. Chapter 10 is short, or chapter 9 is short. Chapter 10 is long. Oh, not that long, but 10 pages. All right, chapter 8. The afternoon was rapidly drawing to a close, and the long, chilly English summer's evening was throwing a misty pall over the green Kentish landscape. The Daydream had set sail, and Marguerite Blakeney stood alone on the edge of the cliff for over an hour, watching those white sails which bore so swiftly away from her the only being who really cared for her, whom she dared to love, whom she knew she could trust. Some little distance away to the left of the lights of the coffee room of the Fisherman's Rest, glittered yellow in the gathering mist. From time to time it seemed to her, aching nerves, as if she could catch from thence the sound of merrymaking and of jovial talk, or even that perpetual senseless laugh of her husband's which grated continually upon her sensitive ears. Oh, her poor nerves. Sir Percy had the delicacy to leave her severely alone. She supposed that in his own stupid, good-natured way he may have understood that she would wish to remain alone, while those white sails disappeared into the vague horizon so many miles away. He, whose notions of propriety and decorum were supersensitive, had not suggested that an attendant should remain within call. Marguerite was grateful to her husband for all this. She always tried to be grateful to him for his thoughtfulness, which was constant, and for his generosity, which really was boundless. She tried even at times to curb the sarcastic, bitter thoughts of him, which made her, in spite of himself, say cruel, insulting things, which she vaguely hoped would wound him. Yet she often wished to wound him too, to make him feel that she held him in contempt, that she too had forgotten that once she had almost loved him, loved that inane fop, whose thoughts seemed unable to soar beyond the tying of the cravat or of the new cut of a coat. Bah, and yet vague memories that were sweet and ardent and attuned to this calm summer's evening came wafted back to her memory. Oh, the invisible wings of the light breeze, the time when first he worshipped her. He seemed so devoted, the very slave, and there was a certain latent intensity in that love which had fascinated her. Then suddenly that love, that devotion, which throughout his courtship she had looked upon the slavish fidelity of a dog, seemed to vanish completely. 24 hours after the simple little ceremony at Old St. Roch, she had told him the story of how, inadvertently, she had spoken of certain matters connected with the Marquis du St. Cyr before some men, her friends, who would use this information against the unfortunate Marquis, had sent him and his family to the guillotine. Oh, interesting. She hated the Marquis. Years ago, Armand, her dear brother, had loved Angélie du St. Cyr, but St. Just was a plebeian. And the Marquis, full of pride and arrogant prejudices of his caste. One day Armand, the respectful, timid lover, ventured on sending a small poem, enthusiastic, ardent, passionate, to the idol of his dreams. The next night he was waylaid just outside Paris by the valets of the Marquis du St. Cyr, and ignominiously thrashed like a dog within an inch of his life, because he had dared to raise his eyes to the daughter of an aristocrat. The incident was one which, in those days, some 2 years before the Great Revolution, was of almost a daily occurrence in France. Incidents of that type, in fact, led to the bloody reprisals which, a few years later, sent most of those haughty heads to the guillotine. Whoa! All right, so we're getting info. That's why she hates him. Huh. I wonder if she did this. I don't think she did it purposefully. I'm curious. Marguerite remembered it all. What her brother must have suffered in his manhood and in his pride must have been appalling. What she suffered through him and with him she never attempted even to analyze. Then the day of retribution came. St. Cyr and his kind had found their masters in those same plebeians whom they had despised. Armand and Marguerite, both intellectual thinking beings, adopted with enthusiasm of their years the utopian doctrines of the Revolution, while the Marquis du St. Cyr and his family fought inch by inch for the retention of those privileges which had placed them socially above their fellow men. Marguerite, impulsive, thoughtless, not calculating the purport of her words, still smarting under the terrible insult her brother had suffered at the Marquis's hands, happened to hear, amongst her own coterie, that the St. Cyrs were in treasonable correspondence with Austria, hoping to obtain the emperor's support to quell the growing revolution in their own country. In those days, one denunciation was sufficient. Marguerite's few thoughtless words anent the Marquis du St. Cyr bore fruit within 24 hours. He was arrested. His papers were searched. Letters from the Austrian emperor, promising to send troops against the Paris populace, were found in his desk. He was arraigned for treason against the nation and sent to the guillotine, whilst his family, his wife, and his sons shared this awful fate. Marguerite, horrified at the terrible consequences of her own thoughtlessness, was powerless to save the Marquis. Her own coterie, the leader of the revolutionary movement, all proclaimed her as a heroine. And when she married Sir Percy Blakeney, she did not perhaps altogether realize how severely he would look upon the sin, which she had so inadvertently committed, and which still lay heavy upon her soul. She made a full confession of it to her husband, trusting to his blind love for her, her boundless power over him, to soon make him forget what might have sounded unpleasant to an English ear. Certainly at the moment he seemed to take it very quietly. Hardly, in fact, did he appear to understand the meaning of all she said. But what was more certain still, what was never after that could she detect the slightest sign of that love, which she once believed had been wholly hers. Now they had drifted quite apart, and Sir Percy seemed to have laid aside his love for her, as he would an ill-fitting glove. She tried to rouse him by sharpening her ready wit against his dull intellect. Endeavored to excite his jealousy, if she could not rouse his love. Tried to goad him to self-assertion, but all in vain. He remained the same, always passive, drawling, sleepy, always courteous, invariably a gentleman. She had all that the world and wealthy husband can give to a pretty woman. Yet on this beautiful summer's evening, with the white sails of the daydream finally hidden by the evening shadow, she felt more lonely than that poor tramp who plodded his way wearily along the rugged cliffs. Man, I was getting sad. Yeah, this is definitely not necessarily like pro monarchy or aristocrat. I think her story is really interesting. I just keep thinking of what's going to happen in this novel now. Like, I don't know where this is going. I think the purpose of this novel is going to be how they fall back in love. But I'm nervous that there's going to be some dramatic thing. Like, they finally fall back in love, and then all of a sudden, like, Percy gets taken by the revolutionaries and beheaded or something like that. And he does it because, like, he finally wants to, like, sacrifice his life for her and, like, really love her and worship her. And what's a greater form of worship than self-sacrifice? Just kidding, but, you know, that's what he thinks, probably. With another heavy sigh, Marguerite Blakeney turned her back upon the sea and cliffs and walked slowly back towards the Fisherman's Rest. As she drew near the sound of revelry, of gay, jovial laughter grew louder and more distant. She could distinguish Sir Andrew Ffoulkes' pleasant voice, Lord Tony's boisterous guffaws, her husband's occasional drawly, sleepy comments. Then, realizing the loneliness of the road and the fast-gathering gloom around her, she quickened her steps. The next moment she perceived a stranger coming rapidly toward her. Marguerite did not look up. She was not the least nervous, and the Fisherman's Rest was now well within call. The stranger paused when he saw Marguerite coming quickly toward him. And just as she was about to slip past him, he said very quietly, Citoyen Saint Just. Marguerite uttered a little cry of astonishment at thus hearing her own familiar maiden name, uttered so close to her. She looked up at the stranger, and this time, with a cry of unfeigned pleasure, she put both her hands effusively toward him. Chauvelin, she exclaimed. Himself, citizen, at your service, said the stranger, gallantly kissing the tips of her fingers. Marguerite said nothing for a moment or two as she surveyed with obvious delight the not very prepossessing little figure before her. Chauvelin was then nearer 40 than 30, a clever, shrewd-looking personality with a curious fox-like expression in the deep sunken eyes. He was the same stranger who an hour or two previously had joined Mr. Jellyband in a friendly glass of wine. Chauvelin, my friend, said Marguerite, with a pretty little sigh of satisfaction, I am mightily pleased to see you. No doubt poor Saint Marguerite, Saint Just, lonely in the midst of her grandeur and of her starchy friends, was happy to see a face that brought back memory of that happy time in Paris, when she reigned a queen over the intellectual coterie of the Rue de Richelieu. She did not notice that sarcastic little smile, however, that hovered around the thin lips of Chauvelin. But tell me, she added merrily, what in the world, or whom in the world, are you doing here in England? She had resumed her walk toward the inn. And Chauvelin turned and walked beside her. I might return the subtle compliment, fair lady, he said. What of yourself? Oh, I, she said, with a shrug of the shoulders. Je m'ennuie, mon ami. That is all. I am with my love. I am with my husband, the one I love. Yeah, this is the sus domino guy. Oh, this is Ian McKellen's character? Love that. I am bored. Mon ami. I am bored. Doesn't a me mean love? I'm bored, my friend. My friend. That's right. That's right. All right. Wow. I'm bored, my friend. That is all. They had reached the port of the Fisherman's Rest, but Marguerite seemed loth to go within. The evening air was lovely after the storm, and she had found a friend who exhaled the breath of Paris, who knew Armand well, who lingered, or who could talk of all the merry, brilliant friends whom she had left behind. So she lingered on under the porch, while through the gaily lit dormer window or the coffee room came sounds of laughter, of calls for Sally and for beer, of tapping of mugs and clinking of dice, mingled with Sir Percy Blakeney's inane and mirthless laugh. Chauvelin stood beside her, his shrewd pale yellow eyes fixed upon her pretty face, which looked so sweet and childlike in this soft English summer twilight. You surprise me, citoyen, he said quietly, as he took a pinch of snuff. Do I now? She retorted gaily. Faith, my little Chauvelin. Chauvelin, I should have thought that with your penetration, you would have guessed that an atmosphere composed of fogs and virtues would never suit Marguerite Saint Just. Dear me. Is it as bad as that? He asked in mock consternation. Quite, she retorted. And worse. Strange. I thought that a pretty woman would have found an English country life peculiarly attractive. Yes, so did I, she said with a sigh. Pretty women, she added meditatively, ought to have a good time in England, since all the pleasant things are forbidden them. The very things they do every day. Quite so. You'll hardly believe it, my little Chauvelin, she said earnestly, but I often pass a whole day without encountering a single temptation. No wonder, retorted Chauvelin gallantly, that the cleverest woman in Europe is troubled with ennui. Are these two gonna capture her? They seem like the revolutionaries who are mocking her. He seems like a revolutionary who is mocking her. So now I'm curious if they're gonna kidnap her. She laughed one of her melodious, rippling, childlike laughs. It must be pretty bad, mustn't it? She said archly. Or I should not have been so pleased to see you. And this within a year of romantic love match. Yes, a year of a romantic love match. That's just the difficulty. Ah, that idyllic folly, said Chauvelin with quiet sarcasm, did not then survive the lapse of weeks? Idyllic follies never last, my little Chauvelin. They come upon us like the measles and are easily cured. Chauvelin took another pinch of snuff. He seemed very much addicted to that pernicious habit. So prevalent these days, too. Perhaps, too, he found the taking of snuff a convenient veil for disguising the quick, shrewd glances with which he strove to read the very souls of those whom he came into contact. No wonder, he repeated with the same gallantry, that the most active brain in Europe is troubled with ennui. I was in hopes that you had a prescription against the malady, my little Chauvelin. How can I hope to succeed in that which Sir Percy Blakeney has failed to accomplish? Shall we leave Sir Percy out of the question for the present, my dear friend? She said dryly. Ah, my dear lady, pardon me, but that is just what we cannot very well do, said Chauvelin, whilst once again his eyes, keen as those of a fox on the alert, darted a quick glance at Marguerite. I have a most perfect prescription against the worst form of ennui, which I would have been happy to submit to you, but what? There is, Sir Percy. What has he to do with it? Quite a good deal, I am afraid. The prescription I would offer, fair lady, is called by a very plebeian name. Work. Work? How dare you? Work. Chauvelin looked at Marguerite long and scrutinizingly. It seemed as if those keen, pale eyes of his were reading every one of her thoughts. They were alone together. The evening air was quite still, and their soft whispers were drowned in the noise which came from the coffee room. Still, Chauvelin took a step or two from under the porch, looked quickly and keenly all around him. Then, seeing that indeed no one was within earshot, he once more came back close to Marguerite. Will you render France a small service, citoyen? He asked with a sudden change of manner, which lent this thin fox-like face singular earnestness. La man, she replied flippantly. How seriously you look all of a sudden. Indeed, I do not know if I would render France a small service at any rate. It depends upon the kind of service she or you want. Have you ever heard of the Scarlet Pimpernel, citoyen Saint Just? Asked Chauvelin abruptly. Heard of the Scarlet Pimpernel? She retorted, with a long and merry laugh. Faith, man, we talk of nothing else. We have hats a la Scarlet Pimpernel. Our horses are called Scarlet Pimpernel. The Prince of Wales supper party the other night. We had an souffle a la Scarlet Pimpernel. Lud, she added gaily. The other day I ordered my milliner's a blue dress trimmed with green, and bless me if she did not call that a la Scarlet Pimpernel. Chauvelin had not moved while she prattled merrily along. He did not even attempt to stop her when her musical voice and her childlike laugh went echoing through the still evening air. But he remained serious and earnest while she laughed, and his voice, clear, incisive, and hard, was not raised above his breath as he said, Then you have heard of that enigmatic personage, citoyen. You must also have guessed and known that the man who hides his identity under that strange pseudonym is the most bitter enemy of our Republic of France, of men like Armand Saint Just. La, she said with a quaint little sigh. I dare swear he is. France has many bitter enemies these days. Interesting. Oh, interesting. Snuff, just tobacco. Hmm. Where am I? But you, citoyen, are a daughter of France, and should be ready to help her in a moment of deadly peril. Is she gonna be like a spy? Are they trying to recruit her as a spy? My brother Armand devotes his life to France, she reported proudly. As for me, I can do nothing here in England. Yes, you, he urged still more earnestly, whilst his thin fox-like face seemed suddenly to have grown impressive and full of dignity. Here in England, citoyen, you alone can help us. Listen, I have been sent over here by the Republican government as its representative. I present my credentials to Mr. Pitt in London tomorrow. One of my duties here is to find out all about this League of the Scarlet Pimpernel, which has become a standing menace to France, since it is pledged to help our cursed aristocrats, traitors to their country and enemies of the people, to escape from the just punishment which they deserve. You know as well as I do, citoyen, that once they are all over here, those French emigres try to rouse public feelings against the Republic. They are ready to join issue with any enemy bold enough to attack France. Now within the last month, scores of these emigres, only suspected of treason, others actually condemned by the Tribunal of Public Safety, have succeeded in crossing the Channel. Their escape in each instance was planned, organized, and effected by this society of young English jackanapes, headed by the man whose brains seem as resourceful as his identity is mysterious. All the most strenuous efforts on the part of my spies have failed to discover who he is, whilst the others are the hands, he is the head, who beneath this strange anonymity calmly works at the destruction of France. I mean to strike at the head, and for this I want your help. Through him afterward, I can reach the rest of the gang. He is a young buck in English society, of that I feel sure. Find that man for me, citoyen, he urged. Find him for France. Marguerite had listened to Chauvelin's impassioned speech without uttering a word, scarce making a movement, hardly daring to breathe. She had told him before that this mysterious hero of romance was the talk of the smart set to which she belonged. Already before this, her heart and her imagination had been stirred by the thought of the brave man who, unknown to fame, had rescued hundreds of lives from a terrible, often an unmerciful fate. She had but little real sympathy with those haughty French aristocrats, insolent in their pride of caste, of whom the Comtesse de Tournay de Bassirive was so typical an example. But republican and liberal-minded though she was from principle, she hated and loathed the method which the young republic had chosen for establishing itself. She had not been in Paris for some months. The horror of bloodshed of the Reign of Terror, culminating in the September massacres, had only come across the channel to her as a faint echo. Robespierre, Danton, Marat she had not known in their new guise of bloody justiciaries, merciless wielders of the guillotine. Her very soul recoiled in horror from these excesses to which she feared her brother Armand, moderate Republican as he was, might become one day the Holocaust. Then, when first she heard of this band of young English enthusiasts who, for sheer love of their fellow men, dragged women and children, old men and young men, from a horrible death, her heart had glowed with pride for them. And now as Chauvelin spoke, her very soul went out to the gallant and mysterious leader of the reckless little band, who risked his life daily, who gave it freely and without ostentation for the sake of humanity. Her eyes were moist when Chauvelin had finished speaking. The lace at her bosom rose and fell with her quick, excited breathing. She no longer heard the noise of drinking from the inn. She did not need her husband's voice or his inane laugh. Her thoughts had gone wandering in search of the mysterious hero. There was a man she might have loved. He had come her way. Everything in him appealed to her romantic imagination, his personality, his strength, his bravery, the loyalty of those who served under him in the same noble cause, and above all, that anonymity which crowned him, is as if with a halo of romantic glory. Find him for France, citoyen. Chauvelin's voice rose to her ear, roused her from her dreams. The mysterious hero had vanished, and not 20 yards away from her, a man was drinking and laughing, to whom she had sworn faith and loyalty. "Ah, man," she said with a return of the assumed flippancy, "you are astonishing. Where in the world am I to look for him?" "You go everywhere, citoyen," whispered Chauvelin, insinuatingly. "Lady Blakeney is the pivot of social London, so I am told. You see everything. You hear everything." "Easy, my friend," retorted Marguerite, drawing herself up to her full height and looking down with a slight thought of contempt on the small, thin figure before her. "Easy. You seem to forget that there are 6 feet of Sir Percy Blakeney, and a long line of ancestors to stand between Lady Blakeney and such things as you propose." "For the sake of France, citoyen," reiterated Chauvelin, earnestly. "Tush, man. You talk nonsense anyway. For even if you did know who this Scarlet Pimpernel is, you could do nothing to him, an Englishman." "I'd take my chance at that," said Chauvelin with a dry, rasping little laugh. "At any rate, we would send him to the guillotine first to cool his ardor. Then, when there is a diplomatic fuss about, we can apologize humbly to the British government, and if necessary, pay compensation to the bereaved family." "What you propose is horrible, Chauvelin," she said, drawing away from him as from some noisome insect. Whoever the man may be, he is brave and noble, and never, do you hear me? Never would I lend a hand to such villainy. You prefer to be insulted by every French aristocrat who comes to this country? Chauvelin had taken sure his aim when he shot this tiny shaft. Marguerite's fresh young cheeks became a thought more pale, and she bit under her lip. For she would not let him see that the shaft had struck home. That is beside the question, she said at last with indifference. I can defend myself, but I refuse to do any dirty work for you or for France. You have other means at your disposal. You must make use of them, my friend. And without another look at Chauvelin, Marguerite Blakeney turned her back on him and walked straight into the inn. That is not your last word, citoyen, said Chauvelin, as a flood of light from the passage illuminated her elegant, richly clad figure. We meet in London, I hope. We meet in London, she said, speaking over her shoulder at him. But that is my last word. She threw open the coffee room door and disappeared from his view. But he remained under the porch for a moment or two, taking a pinch of snuff. He had received a rebuke and a snub. But his shrewd, fox-like face looked neither abashed nor disappointed. On the contrary, a curious smile, half sarcastic and wholly satisfied, played around the corner of his thin lips. Huh. Interesting. I wonder if this is going to be how she gains back her husband's love. Because I feel like the novel's kind of heading in that direction. I mean, obviously we knew the domino players were important. I wonder if she's going to assist the Scarlet Pimpernel. Like, she's going to find out who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. She's going to know who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. And then she's going to start assisting the Scarlet Pimpernel in getting the aristocrats out of France. And then her husband's going to be like, oh, there you go. So I got to take a note. So she's definitely not the Scarlet Pimpernel. Unless the book is leading me to think that. The Scarlet is sister-in-law. That is one of the world's greatest puns right there. Huh, interesting. I should make a video that she is the Scarlet sister-in-law. She does seem like she's gonna make assist. She's gonna be like an aide to the Pimpernel. I don't think that she is the Pimpernel. I don't know who the Pimpernel would be though. I still am kind of lost at that. Folks? I don't know those characters well enough to really make a good guess on that. But I will say these last 3 chapters were much better than the other ones that came before it. I'm actually really intrigued in the book right now. Like, this has gotten much, much better. Yeah. Guys, no. If anybody if anybody tells me who the Pimpernel is right now, banned for life. The Scarlet sister-in-law. I feel like we have met the Scarlet Pimpernel. The Scarlet Pimpernel is the friends we made along the way. I'm curious if there actually is no Scarlet Pimpernel. It's just the Society of the Scarlet Pimpernel. Like there has to be a leader, so I feel like there has to be one. No, if you no, for sure. If you haven't read it and you're with me, you can make as many guesses in chat as you want. If you have read it, you guys just got to be quiet. Yeah, no problems if you're just guessing for sure. Yeah, the old hag driver is a really interesting idea. Trying to suss out who that is. That makes me think it's a woman, but at the same time I don't. Because a guy can dress up as a little hag. Yeah, I don't really have a guess yet. Who was that grumpy guy who seemed to favor Sally? Hot or something like that? Yeah, like yeah, it's a thought that is going on in my mind. If the Scarlet Pimpernel is just like a myth, and the Scarlet Pimpernel isn't really anybody, but I don't know if that's true. There has to be some kind of leader of this group. Yeah, Harry Waite. Yeah, maybe Harry Waite. To be fair, it was a really ugly, creepy old woman. Maybe they just hired her. Maybe that wasn't really the Scarlet Pimpernel. Scarlet Pimpernel was probably in that carriage or something like that. Maybe that wasn't the actual Scarlet Pimpernel. I don't think it's Armand. Maybe it is Armand. But I think, maybe, I don't know. That's actually a great question. That would be shocking if it's Armand. That would be shocking if that's Armand. We would need to know something else that happened in Armand's life that would make him want to rescue aristocrats after being beaten by an aristocrat. Daffy Duck was the Scarlet Pimpernel. Who would be the most likely that Daffy Duck would play? That's a really interesting question now. That's going to give you insight into who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. All right, this is interesting. I'm really intrigued by this novel now. No, I'm not pretending to not speak French well. I just can't speak French well. It's a Pimpernel butterfly. Great album. Okay. I don't know how to ask this question because I don't want spoilers to know when we find out who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. There's a dog at the dog park who just was running around with Wes, and she texted me a picture of Wes or of her dog just like dead on the bed. And I'm like, Wes is doing the same. Cute. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, here's a question I want to ask. Will we find out who the Scarlet Pimpernel is in the next 2 chapters? I don't think we. Is it going to be a mystery? How long of a mystery is it that we know who the Scarlet Pimpernel is? I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't answer that question because I don't really know how to ask this. Because I don't want to know like, oh, don't worry, you'll find out in a chapter who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. I'd like that to be a mystery. The mystery is a big part of the story. That's exactly the answer that I wanted. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, let's keep reading. We're on chapter 8. Or no, chapter 9. We're going to read 2 more chapters. Yeah, but I didn't know if this is a mystery book or not. Yeah, we don't want to know till we know. I guess we'll figure this out soon. We'll figure this out together. This is really just the friends we made along the way. That's the real Scarlet Pimpernel. Yeah, don't spoil anything. Yeah, maybe the Scarlet Pimpernel was the friends we made along the way. That's gonna be a video title. All right, chapter 8. Or, sorry, chapter 9. I don't know my Roman numerals. The Outrage. A beautiful starlit night had followed on the day of incessant rain. A cool, balmy, late summer's night, essentially English in its suggestion of moisture and the scent of wet earth and dripping leaves. The magnificent coach drawn by four of the finest thoroughbreds in England had driven off along the London road, with Sir Percy Blakeney on the box, holding the reins in his slender feminine hands, and beside him, Lady Blakeney. Why does he keep describing his hands as feminine? Like, insulting, first of all. Second of all, could those little feminine hands be hag hands too? I don't think so, but maybe. Maybe that's why he doesn't love her for that reason too. Yeah, they're not working hands. That's what I'm taking it to be. But could they be hag hands maybe? And beside him, Lady Blakeney, wrapped in costly furs. A 50-mile drive on a starlit summer night. Marguerite had hailed the notion of it with delight. Sir Percy was an enthusiastic whip. His 4 thoroughbreds, which had been sent down to Dover a couple days before, were just sufficiently fresh and restive to add zest to the expedition, and Marguerite reveled in anticipation of the few hours of solitude, with the soft night breeze fanning her cheeks, her thoughts wandering whither away. She knew from an old experience that Sir Percy would speak little, if at all. He had often driven her on his beautiful coach for hours at a night, from point to point, without making more than 1 or 2 casual remarks upon the weather or the state of the road. He was very fond of driving by night, and she had very quickly adopted his fancy, as she sat next to him, hour after hour, admiring the dexterous, certain way in which he handled the reins. She often wondered what went on in that slow-going head of his. He never told her, and she never cared to ask. This seems to be further confirming the fact that, to me, he is a Scarlet Pimpernel. Okay, here's where I think the novel's going. Here's where I think it's going. I think he's a Scarlet Pimpernel because he likes riding a coach, and because he's taking people out in a coach. He's a very good rider. He's a good driver. So at the very least, he's in league with the Scarlet Pimpernel, I think, escaping. She is going to find out who the Scarlet Pimpernel is. That's my guess. And now her job is going to be protect her husband from these Frenchmen who are trying to dog her to give up the Scarlet Pimpernel. And she knows full well that the Scarlet Pimpernel is her husband. And that's going to be how she gains his love back and makes him worship her again. Yeah. At the Fisherman's Rest, Mr. Jellyband was going the round, putting out the lights. His bar customers had all gone, but upstairs in the snug little bedrooms, Mr. Jellyband had quite a few important guests. The Comtesse de Tournay, with Suzanne and the Vicomte, and there were 2 more bedrooms ready for Sir Andrew Ffoulkes and Lord Antony Dewhurst, if the 2 young men should elect to honor the ancient hostelry and stay the night. For the moment, these 2 young gallants were very comfortably installed in the coffee room before the huge log fires, which, in spite of the mildness of the evening, had been allowed to burn merrily. "I say, Jelly, has everyone gone?" asked Lord Tony, as the worthy landlord still busied himself clearing away the glasses and mugs. "Everyone, as you see, my lord." "And all your servants gone to bed?" "All except the boy on duty in the bar, and," added Mr. Jellyband with a laugh, "I expect he'll be asleep before long, the rascal. Then we can talk here undisturbed for half an hour." At your service, my lord. I'll leave your candle on the dresser, and your rooms are quite ready. I'll sleep at the top of the house myself, but if your lordships'll only call loudly enough, I dare say I shall hear. All right, Jelly, and I say, put the lamp out. The fire will give us all the light we need, and we don't want to attract the passers-by. All right, my lord. Mr. Jellyband did as he was bid. He turned out the quaint old lamp that hung from the raftered ceilings and blew out all the candles. Let's have a bottle of wine, Jelly, suggested Sir Andrew. All right, sir. Jellyband went off to fetch wine. The room was now quite dark, save for the circle of ruddy and fitful light formed by the brightly blazing logs in the hearth. Is that all right, gentlemen? Asked Jellyband. He returned with a bottle of wine and a couple of glasses, which he placed on the table. That'll do nicely. Thanks, Jelly. Said Lord Tony. Good night, my lord. Good night, sir. Good night, Jelly. The two young men listened, whilst the heavy tread of Mr. Jellyband was heard echoing along the passages and staircase. Presently even that sound died out, and the whole of the Fisherman's Rest seemed wrapped in sleep, save the two young men drinking in silence beside the hearth. For a while no sound was heard, even in the coffee room, save the tickling of the old grandfather clock and the crackling of the wood burning. All right. Again this time, folks? Asked Lord Antony at last. Sir Andrew had been dreaming evidently, gazing into the fire, and seeing therein no doubt a pretty piquant face with large brown eyes and a wealth of dark curls around a childish forehead. Yes, he said, still musing all right. No hitch? None. Lord Antony laughed pleasantly as he poured himself out another glass of wine. I need not ask, I suppose, whether you found the journey pleasant this time. No, friend, you need not ask, replied Sir Andrew gaily. It was all right. Then here's to her good health, said jovial Lord Tony. She's a bonny lass, though she is a French one. And here's to your courtship. May it flourish and prosper exceedingly. He drained his glass to the last drop, and joined his friend beside the hearth. Well, you'll be doing the journey next, Tony, I expect, said Sir Andrew, rousing himself from his meditation. You and Hastings, certainly, and I hope you may have plenty of task as I had. And as charming a traveling companion. You have no idea, Tony. No, I haven't, interrupted his friend pleasantly. But I'll take your word for it. And now, he added, whilst a sudden earnestness crept over his jovial young face, how about business? The two young men drew their chairs together closer, and instinctively, though they were alone, their voices sank to a whisper. I saw the Scarlet Pimpernel alone for a few moments in Calais, said Sir Andrew, a day or two ago. He crossed over to England 2 days before we did. He had escorted the party all the way from Paris, dressed, you'll never credit, as an old market woman, and driving until they were safely out of the city, the covered cart under which the Comtesse de Tournay, Suzanne, and the Vicomte lay concealed among the turnips and cabbages. They themselves, of course, never suspected who their driver was. He drove them right through a line of soldiery and yelling mob, who were screaming, "À bas les aristos!" But the market cart got through along with some others, and the Scarlet Pimpernel, in shawl, petticoat, and hood, yelled, "À bas les aristos!" louder than anybody. Faith, added the young man. His eyes glowed with enthusiasm for the beloved leader. That man's a marvel. His cheek is preposterous, I vow. And that's what carries him through. Lord Antony, whose vocabulary was more limited than that of his friend, could only find an oath or two with which to show his admiration for his leader. He wants you and Hastings to meet him at Calais, said Sir Andrew, more quietly, on the 2nd of the month. Let me see. That will be next Wednesday. Yes, it is, of course, the case of the Comte de Tournay this time. A dangerous task for the Comte, who escaped from his chateau, and after he had been declared a suspect by the Committee of Public Safety, was a masterpiece of the Scarlet Pimpernel's ingenuity. is now under sentence of death. It will be a rare sport to get him out of France, and you will have a narrow escape if you get to jail, if you get through it all. St. Just has actually gone to meet him, of course. No one suspects St. Just as yet, but after that, to get them both out of the country. Interesting, hold on. That's what Armand is going to do? St. Just has actually gone to meet him, of course. Of course, no one suspects St. Just as yet. But after that, to get them both out of the country. A faith 'twill be a tough job, and tax even the ingenuity of our chief. I hope I may yet have orders to be of the party. Have you any special instructions for me? Yes, rather more precise ones than usual. It appears that the Republican government have sent an accredited agent over to England, a man named Chauvelin, who is said to be terribly bitter against our league and determined to discover the identity of our leader, so that he may have kidnapped him. He may have him kidnapped the next time he attempts to set foot in France. This Chauvelin has brought a whole army of spies with him, and until the chief has sampled the lot, he thinks we should meet as seldom as possible on the business of the league, and on no account should talk to each other in public places for a time. When he wants to speak to us, he will contrive to let us know. The two young men were both bending over the fire, for the blaze had died down, and only a red glow from the dying embers cast a lurid light on the narrow semicircle in front of the hearth. The rest of the room lay buried in complete gloom. Sir Andrew had taken a pocket-book from his pocket and drawn therein a paper which he unfolded, and together they tried to read by the dim red firelight. So intent they were upon this, so wrapped up in the cause, the business they had so much at heart, so precious was this document which came from the very hand of their adored leader, that they had eyes and ears only for that. They lost count of the sound around them, and of the dropping of crisp ash from the grate, of the monotonous ticking of the clock, of the soft, almost imperceptible rustle of something on the floor beside them. A figure had emerged from under one of the benches. With snake-like, noiseless movements, it crept closer and closer to the two young men, not breathing, only gliding along the floor in the inky blackness of the room. I forgot about that guy. You are to read these instructions and commit them to memory, said Sir Andrew, then destroy them. He was about to replace the letter case in his pocket when a tiny slip of paper fluttered from it and fell onto the floor. Lord Antony stooped and picked it up. What's that? He asked. I don't know, replied Sir Andrew. It dropped out of your pocket just now. It certainly did not seem to be with the other paper. Strange, I wonder when it got there. Is it from the chief? He added, glancing at the paper. Both stooped to try to decipher this last tiny scrap of paper, on which a few words had been hastily scrawled, and suddenly a slight noise attracted their attention, which seemed to come from the passage beyond. What's that? Said both instinctively. Lord Antony crossed the room toward the door, which he threw open quickly and suddenly. At that very moment he received a stunning blow between the eyes, which threw him back violently into the room. Simultaneously, the crouching snake-like figure in the gloom had jumped up and hurled itself behind upon the unsuspecting Sir Andrew, felling him to the ground. All this occurred within the short space of 2 or 3 seconds, and before either Lord Antony or Sir Andrew had time or a chance to utter a cry or to make the faintest struggle, they were each seized by 2 men. A muffler was quick tied round the teeth of each, and they were pinioned to one another, back to back, their arms, hands, and legs securely fastened. One man had, in the meanwhile, quietly shut the door. He wore a mask and now stood motionless, while the others completed their work. All safe, citoyen, said one of the men, as he took the final survey of the bonds which secured the 2 young men. Good, replied the man at the door. Now search their pockets and give me all the papers you find. This was promptly and quietly done. The masked man, having taken possession of all the papers, listened for a moment or two, if there were any sound within the fisherman's rest. Evidently satisfied that this dastardly outrage had remained unheard, he once more opened the door and pointed peremptorily down the passage. The four men lifted Sir Andrew and Lord Antony from the ground, and as quietly, as noiselessly as they had come, they bore the two pinioned young gallants out of the inn and along the Dover road into the gloom beyond. Whoa! In the coffee room, the masked leader of this daring attempt was quickly glancing through the stolen papers. Not a bad day's work on the whole, he muttered, as he quietly took off his mask and his pale fox-like eyes glittered around the red glow of the room. Not a bad day's work. He opened one or two more of the letters from Sir Andrew Ffoulkes' pocketbook, noted the tiny scrap of paper which the two young men had only just time to read, but one letter specifically, signed Armand St. Just, seemed to give him strange satisfaction. Armand St. Just, a traitor after all, he murmured. Now, fair Marguerite Blakeney, he added viciously between his clenched teeth, I think that you will help me to find the Scarlet and Pimpernel. Whoa! That's a great chapter. Wait for it. Everyone watch. This is what we feel right now. Right there. Come on. Oh, it just went away. That's crazy. I'm not the best mystery book reader, so sometimes I don't necessarily see a lot of stuff coming. That's crazy. And there were 4 of them. That's interesting. I don't think Sir Andrew or Antony are the Scarlet Pimpernel. I still have maybe guesses where it could potentially be them, that they were just putting on a guise. But I don't think that's it. It seems very plain that it's not. But anytime that it's plain that it's not, sometimes it means that they are. So, riddle me that. Little leverage. That's really interesting. Everyone in my family has killed someone. It has a massive plot hole. Huh, interesting. I'll add that to the list. That's a great end of the chapter right there. So Armand is a little traitor. Also, how did they not see this guy? Sneak under the bench. Come on. All right, last chapter. Chapter 10. In the opera box. I need some more water. My throat's getting hurt and scratchy. All right. Chapter 10. In the opera box. It was one of the gala nights at the Covent Garden Theatre, the first of the autumn season in this memorable year of grace, 1792. Oh, sorry, I gotta get more comfortable. The house is packed, both in the smart orchestra boxes and the pit, as well as in the more plebeian balconies and galleries above. Gluck's Orpheus made a strong appeal to the more intellectual portions of the house, whilst the fashionable woman, the gaily dressed, brilliant throng spoke to the eye of those who cared but little for this latest importation from Germany. Selina Storis had been duly applauded after her grand aria by her numerous admirers. Benjamin Incledon, the acknowledged favorite of the ladies, had received special gracious recognition from the royal box, and now the curtains came down after the glorious finale to the second act, and the audience, which had hung spellbound on the magic strains of the great maestro, seemed collectively to breathe a long sigh of satisfaction, previously to let loose its hundreds of waggish and frivolous tongues. In the smart orchestra boxes, many well-known faces were to be seen. Mr. Pitt, overweighted with cares of state, was finding brief relaxation in tonight's musical treat. The Prince of Wales, jovial, rotund, somewhat coarse and commonplace in appearance, moved about from box to box, spending brief quarters of an hour with those of his more intimate friends. In Lord Grenville's box, too, a curious, interesting personality attracted everyone's attention. A thin, small figure with shrewd, sarcastic face and deep-set eyes, attentive to the music, keenly critical of the audience, dressed in immaculate black, with dark hair free from any powder. Lord Grenville, Foreign Secretary of State, paid him marked, though frigid deference. Here and there, dotted about amongst the distinct English types of beauty, one or two foreign faces stood out in marked contrast. The haughty aristocratic cast of countenance of many French royalist emigres who, persecuted by the relentless revolutionaries factions of their country, had found a peaceful refuge in England. On these faces, sorrow and care were deeply writ. The women especially paid but little heed, either to the music or to the brilliant audience. No doubt their thoughts were far away with the husband, brother, son maybe, still in peril, or lately succumbed to a cruel fate. Among these, the Comtesse de Tournay de Brasrive, but lately arrived from France, was a most conspicuous figure. Dressed in deep, heavy black silk, with only a white lace handkerchief to relieve the aspect of mourning about her person, she sat beside Lady Portales, who was vainly trying by witty sallies and somewhat broad jokes to bring a smile to the Comtesse's sad mouth. Behind her sat little Suzanne and the Vicomte, both silent and somewhat shy among so many strangers. Suzanne's eyes seemed wistful when she first entered the crowded house. She had looked eagerly all around, scanned every face, scrutinized every box. Evidently the one she wished to see was not there, for she settled herself down quietly behind her mother, listened apathetically to the music, and took no further interest in the audience itself. "Ah, Lord Grenville," said Lady Portales, as following a discreet knock. The clever, interesting head of the Secretary of State appeared in the doorway of the box. "You could not arrive more apropos. Here is Madame la Comtesse de Tournay, positively dying to hear the latest news from France." The distinguished diplomat had come forward and was shaking hands with the ladies. "Alas," he said coldly, "it is one of the very worst. The massacres continue. Paris literally reeks with blood, but the guillotine claims 100 victims a day." Pale and tearful, the Comtesse was leaning back in her chair, listening horror-struck to this brief and graphic account of what went on in her own misguided country. "Ah, monsieur," she said in broken English, "it is dreadful to hear all that, and my poor husband still in that awful country. It is terrible for me to be sitting here in a theater, all safe and in peace, whilst he is in such peril." "Lud, madame," said honest, bluff Lady Portales, "your sitting in a convent won't make your husband safe. And you have your children to consider. They are too young to be dosed with anxiety and premature mourning." The Comtesse smiled through her tears at the vehemence of her friend. Lady Portales, whose voice and manner would not have misfitted a jockey, had a heart of gold, and hid the most genuine sympathy and the most gentle kindliness beneath the somewhat coarse manners affected by some ladies at the time. "Beside which, madame," added Lord Grenville, "did you not tell me that yesterday that the League of the Scarlet Pimpernel had pledged their honor to bring M. le Lecomte safely across the Channel?" "Ah, yes," replied the Comtesse, "and that is my only hope. I saw Lord Hastings yesterday. He reassured me again." "Then I am sure you have no fear. That you need have no fear. What the League have sworn, that they surely will accomplish." "Ah," added the old diplomatist with a sigh, "if I were but a few years younger." "La, man," interrupted the honest Lady Portales, "you are still young enough to turn your back on that French scarecrow that sits enthroned in your box tonight. I wish I could, but your ladyship must remember that in serving our country we must put prejudices aside. M. Chauvelin is the accredited agent of his government, Oh, interesting. Odds fish, man, she retorted. Don't call those bloodthirsty ruffians over there government, do you? It has not been thought advisable as yet, said the minister, guardedly, for England to break off diplomatic relations with France, and we cannot therefore refuse to receive with courtesy the agent she wishes to send to us. Diplomatic relations be demmed, my lord. The sly little fox over there is nothing but a spy, I'll warrant. And you'll find, and I'm much mistaken, that he'll concern himself little with diplomacy, beyond trying to do mischief to royalist refugees, to our heroic Scarlet Pimpernel, and to the members of that brave little league. I am sure, said the Comtesse, pursing up her thin lips, that if the Chauvelin wishes to do us mischief, he will find a faithful ally in Lady Blakeney. Interesting. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I know, I feel like that when we're in the opera box right now. Excuse me? Bless the woman, ejaculated Lady Portalis. Did ever anyone see such perversity? My Lord Greenville, you have the gift of gab. You will please explain to Madame la Comtesse that she is acting like a fool. In your position, here in England, Madame, she added, turning a wrathful and resolute face toward the Comtesse, you cannot afford to put on hoity-toity airs you French aristocrats are so fond of. Lady Blakeney may or not be in sympathy with those ruffians in France. She may or may not have had anything to do with the arrest and condemnation of St. Cyr, or whatever that man's name is. But she is the leader of a fashion in this country. Sir Percy Blakeney has more money than any half-dozen other men put together. He is hand and glove with royalty. And you trying to snub Lady Blakeney will not harm her, but will make you look a fool. Isn't that so, my lord? But what Lord Greenville thought of this matter, or to what reflections this homely tirade of Lady Portalis led to the Comtesse de Tournay, remained unspoken, for the curtain had just arisen on the third act of Orpheus, and admonitions to silence came from every part of the house. Lord Greenville took a hasty farewell of the ladies and slipped back into his box, where M. Chauvelin had sat all through this entr'acte, with his eternal snuff-box in his hand, and with his keen pale eyes intently fixed upon a box opposite to him, where, with much frou-frou of silken skirts, much laughter, and general stir of curiosity amongst the audience, Marguerite Blakeney had just entered, accompanied by her husband, and looking divinely pretty beneath the wealth of her golden reddish curls, slightly besprinkled with powder, and tied back at the nape of her graceful neck with a gigantic black bow. Always dressed in the very latest vagary of fashion, Marguerite, alone among the ladies that night, had discarded the crossover fichu and broad-lapelled overdress, which had been fashioned for the last 2 or 3 years. She wore the short-waisted classical-shaped gown, which so soon was to become the approved mode in every country in Europe. It suited her grace. It suited her graceful, regal figure to perfection, composed as it was of shimmering stuff, which seemed a mass of rich gold embroidery. She entered and leant for a moment out of the box, taking stock of all those present whom she knew. Many bowed to her as she did so, and from the royal box there came also a quick and gracious salute. Chauvelin watched her intently, all through the commencement of the third act, as she sat enthralled with the music, her exquisite little hand toying with a small jeweled fan, her regal head, her throat, arms, neck covered with magnificent diamonds and rare gems, the gift of the adoring husband, who sprawled leisurely by her side. Marguerite was passionately fond of music. Orpheus charmed her tonight. The very joy of living was writ plainly upon the sweet young face. It sparkled out of the merry blue eyes and lit up the smile that lurked around her lips. She was after all but 25, in the heyday of youth, the darling of a brilliant throng, adored, feted, petted, cherished. 2 days ago, the daydream returned from Calais, bringing her news that her idolized brother had safely landed. Oh, and that he thought of her and would be prudent for her sake. So he's in France now. Uh-oh. Yikes. Orpheus is about leading one's beloved wife out of darkness and death. Interesting. What does the Empire waist gown look like? I'm going to look that up real quick. Oh, wow. She's looking good. Orpheus fails at the end? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. No! Is this ominous? Uh-oh. What wonder for the moment in listening to Gluck's impassioned strains that she forgot her disillusionments, forgot her vanished love dreams, forgot even the lazy, good-humored non-entity who had made up for his lack of spiritual attainments by lavishing worldly advantages upon her. He had stayed beside her in the royal box just as long as convention demanded, making way for his royal highness and for the host of admirers, who in a continued procession came to pay homage to the queen of fashion. Sir Percy had strolled away, to talk to more congenial friends probably. Marguerite did not even wonder whither he had gone. She cared so little. She had a little court round her, composed of the jeunesse dorée of London. She had just dismissed them all, wishing to be alone with Gluck for a brief while. Or Gluck? A discreet knock at the door roused her from her enjoyment. "Come in," she said with some impatience, without turning to look at the intruder. Chauvelin, waiting for his opportunity, noted that she was alone, and now without pausing for that impatient come in, he quietly slipped into the box, and the next moment was standing behind Marguerite's chair. "A word with you, citoyen," he said quietly. Marguerite turned quickly, in alarm, which was not altogether feigned. "Lud, man, you frighten me," she said with a forced little laugh. "Your presence is entirely inopportune. I want to listen to Gluck. I have no mind for talking." "But this is my only opportunity," he said as quietly, and without waiting for permission, he drew a chair close behind her, so close that he could whisper in her ear without disturbing the audience, and without being seen, in the dark background of the box. "This is my only opportunity," he repeated, as she vouchsafed him no reply. "Lady Blakeney is always so surrounded, so feted by her court, that a mere old friend has very little chance." "Faith, man," she said impatiently. "You must seek another opportunity then. I am going to Lord Grenville's ball tonight after the opera. So are you, probably. I'll give you 5 minutes then." 3 minutes in the privacy of the box are quite sufficient for me," he rejoined placidly. "And I think you would be wise to listen to me, citoyen Saint Just." Marguerite instinctively shivered. Chauvelin had not raised his voice above a whisper, and he was now quietly taking a pinch of snuff, yet there was something in his attitude, something in those pale foxy eyes, which seemed to freeze the blood in her veins, as with the sight of something deadly, hitherto unguessed peril. Is that a threat, citoyen?" she asked at last. "Nay, fair lady," he said gallantly. "Only an arrow shot in the air." He paused a moment, like a cat which sees a mouse running heedlessly by, ready to spring, yet waiting with that feline sense of enjoyment of mischief about to be done. Then he quietly said, "Your brother, Saint Just, is in peril." Not a muscle moved in the beautiful face before him. He could only see it in profile, for Marguerite seemed to be watching the stage intently, but Chauvelin was a keen observer. He noticed the sudden rigidity of the eyes, the hardening of the mouth, the sharp, almost paralyzed tension of the beautiful, graceful figure. "Lud, then," she said, with affected merriment, "since 'tis one of your imaginary plots, you'd best go back to your own seat and leave me to enjoy the music." And with her hand she began to beat time nervously against the cushion of the box. Selina Storis was singing the Che Faro to an audience that hung spellbound upon the prima donna's lips. Chauvelin did not move from his seat. He quietly watched that tiny nervous hand, the only indication that his shaft had indeed struck at home. "Well," she said suddenly and irrelevantly, with that same feigned unconcern. Well, citoyen, he rejoined placidly, about my brother? I have news of him for which I think will interest you, but first let me explain, may I? The question was unnecessary, he felt, though Marguerite still held her head steadily averted from him, that her every nerve was strained to hear what he had to say. The other day, citoyen, he asked, I asked for your help. France needed it, and I thought I could rely on you, but you gave me your answer. Since then, the exigencies of my own affairs and your own social duties have kept us apart, although many things have happened. To the point, I pray, citoyen, she said lightly. The music is entrancing, and the audience will get impatient of your talk. One moment, citoyen. On the day on which I had the honor of meeting you at Dover, and less than an hour and a half after your final answer, I obtained possession of some papers which revealed another of the subtle schemes for the escape of a batch of French aristocrats, the traitor de Tournay amongst others, all organized by that arch meddler, the Scarlet Pimpernel. Some of the threads, too, of this mysterious organization have fallen into my hands, but not all. And I want you, nay, you must help me to gather them together. Marguerite seemed to have listened to him with marked impatience. She now shrugged her shoulders and said gaily, Bah, man, have I not already told you that I care not about your schemes or the Scarlet Pimpernel? And had you not spoken about my brother? A little patience, I entreat, citoyen, he continued imperturbably. 2 gentlemen, Lord Antony Dewhurst and Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, were at the Fisherman's Rest at Dover that same night. I know, I saw them there. They were already known to my spies as members of that accursed league. It was Sir Andrew Ffoulkes who escorted the Comtesse de Tournay and her children across the channel. When the 2 young men were alone, my spies forced their way into the coffee room of the inn, gagged and pinioned the 2 gallants, seized their papers, and brought them to me. In a moment she had guessed the danger. Papers? Had Armand been imprudent? The very thought struck her with nameless terror. Still, she would not let this man see that she feared. She laughed gaily and lightly. Faith, in your imprudence passes belief, she said merrily. Robbery and violence in England, in a crowded inn, you men have been caught in the act. What if they had? They are children of France. They have been trained by your humble servant. They had been caught. Had they been caught, they would have gone to jail or even to the gallows without a word of protest or indiscretion. At any rate, it was well worth the risk. A crowded inn is a safer space for these little operations, you think? And my men have experience. Well, and those papers, she asked carelessly. Unfortunately, though, they have given me consignments of certain names, certain movements. Enough, I think, to thwart their projected coup for the moment. It would only be for the moment, and still leaves me ignorant of the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel. Ah, my friend, she said, with the same assumed flippancy of the manner. Then you are where you were before, aren't you? And you can let me enjoy the last strophe of this aria. Faith, she added ostentatiously, smothering an imaginary yawn. Had you not spoken about my brother? I am coming to him now, citoyen. Among the papers there was a letter to Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, written by your brother Saint Just. Well, and? That letter shows him not only to be in sympathy with the enemies of France, but actually a helper, if not a member of the League of the Scarlet Pimpernel. The blow had struck at last. All along, Marguerite had been expecting it. She would not show fear. So does Marguerite know that he's in league with the Scarlet Pimpernel? She didn't know this before? Okay. Okay. The blow had struck at last. All along, Marguerite had been expecting it. She would not show fear. She was determined to seem unconcerned, flippant even. She wished, when the shock came, to be prepared for it, to have all her wits about her, those which she had nicknamed the keenest, which she had been nicknamed keenest in Europe. Even now she did not flinch. She knew that Chauvelin had spoken the truth. The man was too earnest, too blindly devoted to the misguided cause he had at heart, too proud of his countrymen, of those makers of revolution, to stoop to low, purposeless falsehoods. The letter of Armand's foolish, imprudent Armand was in Chauvelin's hands. Marguerite knew that, as if he had seen the letter with her own eye, Chauvelin would hold that letter for purpose of his own, until it suited him to destroy it, or make use of it against Armand. All that she knew, and yet she continued to laugh more gaily, more loudly than she had done before. "La, man," she said, speaking over her shoulder and looking him full and squarely in the face. "Did I not say it was some imaginary plot? Armand in league with that enigmatic Scarlet Pimpernel. Armand busy helping those French aristocrats whom he despises. Faith, the tale does an infinite credit to your imagination." "Let me make my point clear, citoyen," said Chauvelin, with the same unruffled calm. "I must assure you that Saint Just is compromised beyond the slightest hope of pardon." Inside the orchestra box, all was silent for a moment or two. Marguerite sat upright, rigid and inert, trying to think, trying to face the situation, to realize what had best be done. In the house, Storace had finished the aria, and was now even bowing in her classic garb, but in approved 18th century fashion to the enthusiastic audience who cheered to her echo. "Chauvelin," said Marguerite at last, quietly, and without that touch of bravado which had characterized her attitude all along. "Chauvelin, my friend, shall we try to understand one another? It seems that all my wits have become rusty by contact with the damp climate. Now tell me, you were very anxious to discover the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel, isn't that so?" "France's most bitter enemy, citoyen, all the more dangerous as he works in the dark." "All the more noble, you mean? Well, and you would now force me to do some spying work for you in exchange for my brother Armand's safety. Is that it?" "Fie, two very ugly words, fair lady," protested Chauvelin urbanely. "There can be no question of force. And the service which I would ask of you in the name of France could never be called by the shocking name of spying. At any rate, that is what it is called over here," she said dryly. "That is your intention, is it not?" "My intention is that you yourself win a free pardon for Armand Saint Just by doing me a small service." "What is it?" "Only watch for me tonight, citoyen Saint Just," he said eagerly. "Listen among the papers which were founded at the person of St. Andrew Ffoulkes. There was a tiny note, see?" he added, taking a tiny scrap of paper from his pocketbook and handing it to her. It was the same scrap of paper which 4 days ago the two young men had been in the act of reading at the very moment when they were attacked by Chauvelin's minions. Marguerite took it mechanically and stooped to read it. There were only 2 lines. Written in a distorted, evidently disguised handwriting. She read them half aloud. "Remember, we must not meet more often than is strictly necessary. You all have instructions for the second. If you wish to speak to me again, it shall be at G's ball." "What does it mean?" she asked. "Look again, citoyen, you will understand. There is a device here in the corner, a small red flower." "Yes." "The Scarlet Pimpernel," she said eagerly. "And G's ball means Greenville's ball. He will be at my Lord Greenville's ball tonight." "That is how I interpret the note, citoyen," concluded Chauvelin blandly. "Lord Antony Dewhurst and Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, after they were pinioned and searched by my spies, were carried by my order to a lonely house on the Dover Road, which I had rented for the purpose. There they remained close prisoners until this morning. But having found this tiny scrap of paper, my intention was that they should be in London, in time to attend my Lord Greenville's ball. You see, do you not? They must have had a greater deal to say to their chief, and thus they will have an opportunity of speaking to him tonight, just as he directed them to do. Therefore, this morning, those 2 young gallants found every bar and bolt open in that lonely house on the Dover Road. Their jailers disappeared, and 2 good horses standing ready, saddled and tethered in the yard. I have not seen them yet, but I think we may safely conclude that they did not draw reins until they reached London. Now you see how simple it all is, citoyen." "It does seem simple, doesn't it?" she said, with a final bitter attempt at flippancy. "When you want to kill a chicken, you just take hold of it. Then you wring its neck. It's only the chicken who does not find it quite so simple. Now you hold a knife at my throat, and a hostage for my obedience. You find it simple. I don't. Nay, citoyen, I offer you a chance of saving the brother you love from the consequence of his own folly. Marguerite's face softened. Her eyes at last grew moist, as she murmured, half to herself, "The only being in the world who has loved me truly and constantly. But what do you want me to do, Chauvelin?" she said, with a world of despair in her tear-choked voice. "In my present position, it is well nigh impossible." "Nay, citoyen," he said dryly and relentlessly, not heeding that despairing childlike appeal, which might have melted the heart of stone. "As Lady Blakeney, no one suspects you, and with your help tonight I may, who knows, succeed in finally establishing the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel. You are going to the ball anon. Watch for me there, citoyen. Watch and listen. You can tell me if you hear a chance word or a whisper. You can know everyone to whom Sir Andrew Ffoulkes or Lord Anthony Dewhurst will speak. You are absolutely beyond suspicion. The Scarlet Pimpernel will be at Lord Greenville's ball tonight. Find out who he is, and I will pledge the word of France that your brother shall be safe." Chauvelin was putting the knife to her throat. Marguerite felt herself entangled in one of those webs, from which she could hope for no escape. A precious hostage was being held for her obedience, for she knew this man would never make an empty threat. No doubt Armand was signaled to the Committee of Public Safety as one of the suspect, but he would not be allowed to leave France again, and would be ruthlessly struck if she refused to obey Chauvelin. For a moment, womanlike, she still hoped to temporize. She held out her hand to this man, whom she now feared and hated. "If I promise to help you in this matter, Chauvelin," she said pleasantly, "will you give me that letter of Saint Just?" "If you render me useful assistance tonight, citoyen," he replied with a sarcastic smile, "I will give you the letter tomorrow." "You do not trust me." "I trust you absolutely, my dear. Saint Just's life is forfeit to his country. It rests with you to redeem it." "I may be powerless to help you," she pleaded, "were I ever so willing." "That would be terrible indeed," he said quietly, "for you and for Saint Just." Marguerite shuddered. She felt that from this man she could expect no mercy. All-powerful, he held that beloved life in the hollow of his hands. She knew him too well not to know that, if he failed in gaining his own ends, he would be pitiless. She felt, in spite of the oppressive air of the opera house, the heart-appealing strains of the music seemed to reach her from a distant land. She drew her costly lace scarf up around her shoulders and sat silently watching the brilliant scene as if in a dream. For a moment her thoughts wandered away from the loved one who was in danger to that other man who also had a claim on her confidence and her affection. She felt lonely. Frightened for Armand's sake, she longed to seek comfort and advice from someone who would know how to help and console. Sir Percy Blakeney had loved her once. He was her husband. Why should she stand alone through this terrible ordeal? He had very little brains, it is true, but he had plenty of muscle, surely, if she proved the thought, and he the manly energy and pluck. Together they could outwit the astute diplomatist and save the hostage from this terrible hands, without imperiling the life of their noble leader and the gallant little band of heroes. Sir Percy knew Saint Just well. He seemed attached to him. She was sure that he could help. Chauvelin was taking no further heed of her. He had said his cruel either-or and left her to decide. He, in his turn now, appeared to be absorbed in the soul-stirring melodies of Orpheus, and was beating time to music with his sharp, ferret-like head. A discreet rap at the door roused Marguerite from her thoughts. It was Sir Percy Blakeney, tall, sleepy, good-humored, and wearing that half-shy, half-inane smile, which just now seemed to irritate her every nerve. Your chair is outside, my dear," he said, with the most exasperating drawl. "I suppose you will want to go to that demmed ball. Excuse me, Monsieur Chauvelin, I had not observed you." He extended two slender, white fingers toward Chauvelin, who had risen when Sir Percy entered the box. "Are you coming, my dear?" "Hush!" came an angry remonstrance from different parts of the house. Deemed impudence. Commenting Sir Percy with a good-natured smile, Marguerite sighed impatiently. Her last hope seemed suddenly to have vanished away. She wrapped her cloak round her, and without looking at her husband, "I am ready to go," she said, taking his arm. At the door of the box, she turned and looked straight at Chauvelin, who, with his chapeau bras under his arm, a curious smile around his thin lips, was prepared to follow the strangely ill-assorted couple. "It is only au revoir, Chauvelin," she said pleasantly. "We shall meet at my Lord Greenville's ball anon." And in her eyes, the astute Frenchman read, no doubt, something which caused him profound satisfaction. For a sarcastic smile, he took a delicate pinch of snuff. Then, having dusted his dainty lace jabot, he rubbed his thin, bony hands contentedly together. Okay. So I'm going to say I'm 95% of the belief that it is Percy who is the Scarlet Pimpernel. But I don't know for sure, obviously. But I think that's my best guess. My best guess. Also, maybe no one would listen to her. But could she, what would be the, I mean, there's 4 of these other guys, so maybe like she's nervous for, the other people who would know that this would happen. But what would be the problem of her yelling out in the middle of this opera, like traitor, like enemy of France or enemy of England? This guy is helping assist France, and they just take that guy and they whisk him away. Maybe no one would believe her. I guess she's a woman in this society. She'd be less believed, but I don't know. Like, this guy's cover is just that he's a diplomat. Everyone's too trusting in this. The nobility are too trusting. Well, wouldn't it help Armand? Because he's the only one that has this information. I guess him and the other 4. So I guess the other 4 would then go spill this information out. But, like, this information to me is only known by Marguerite and him. Yeah, diplomatic immunity. That's true. So I think that Percy is a Scarlet Pimpernel, and I think she's going to find out that Percy is a Scarlet Pimpernel, and the whole thing is going to be what she does, how she acts, if she defends him or not. Because this Orpheus thing, as you guys say, is interesting. So it's about a wife trying to defend the husband. What did we say before? Leading one's beloved wife out of darkness and death. Interesting. So, that's my guess. Maybe it's someone totally different. Maybe it's just, I don't think it's Armand. Yeah, that's what I kind of think. Husband trying to rescue his wife from the underworld. Interesting, okay. Husband trying to lead his wife out of Hades. So maybe he's not, but he might be trying to get her out of this trouble. Is he going to assist too in some way? Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of shenanigans and a lot of interesting weird stuff in between, but Hades Town? What's that? Is that a podcast? Is that a book? I gotta get my mythology knowledge up before we read the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's a musical. Interesting. All right. Maybe I'll give it a try. I need to go check out Orpheus now. All right. The book is good. The book is much better. The first 5 chapters, I was kind of like, I was like, this is going to be better than Wuthering Heights, but I wasn't like that thrilled. I was like, this doesn't seem all that incredible to me. These 5 chapters, now I'm very intrigued by the plot. The writing is a little funky. The writing's not my favorite Doesn't feel like a classical novel of like great writing. But the plot is fun. This is a great breather from Wuthering Heights. This is exactly kind of what we need. A little thaw out from that. Husband has to lead his wife out without looking back, just having blind trust that she is following. Oh, interesting. Yeah, definitely fun and entertaining. Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. It's a good break from Wuthering Heights. And we're kind of cruising along in this. Not quite halfway through, but probably by next time we'll be halfway through. Well, we're going to do another 10 chapters, or not 10. We're going to do 11, 12, 13. Ooh, 13 is a page. 14, and 15. There's like 20-ish pages. 25. Maybe we'll do that like Sunday. Like Sunday night. Give people who are West Coasters a little bit of a help. Probably just tackle this in 5 chapter chunks. How many chapters are there? XXIX is 24? No, 20. I don't know, Roman numerals. 29. There's 30 chapters? 30. 31? 31 chapters. So, yeah. The next read will be halfway through. That's crazy. Next Lord of the Reads is going to be on Sunday afternoon, too. So, I'm going to stream Lord of the Rings typical time on Sunday, like 1:15, 1:30-ish. And then I'll probably take a long break. Let's go take Wes for a walk. And then maybe stream this at like 7 or 8-ish. We'll do last chapters. Oh, Nemo, that'll work perfect. That's right in between. That'll be perfect. I'll be listening as I take Wes for a walk. I'm going to miss the next one. Yeah, South African, that's going to be late, but I got to vary it up every once in a while. Give some of our Asian contingent and Oceania and West Coasters some alleviation. All right, I'm enjoying this. This is great. This is fun. Not a lot to discuss literarily, but fun plot stuff, which I like. Yeah, about that. 1:30 Scarlet, 1:30 Lord of the Rings, then maybe like 7:30-ish. Yeah, Scarlet and Pimpernel. Maybe a little later. Maybe around 7:30. Yeah, that's a good guess. We'll probably go around then. Did I say Lord of the Reads? Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. The Bennett girl is just waiting for a ball. It's kind of what we feel like right now. It's good. Like, these are good cliffhanger chapters. I really like how each chapter is like, dun dun dun. Find out next week on the Scarlet Pimpernel. So it's gonna be fun. Really enjoying this book. I hope you guys are too. It's a good one. All right, I'm gonna go make some videos and go work for the rest of the day. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Maybe Sunday for Lord of the Rings. Probably Sunday for Scarlet and Pimpernel too. And that's all I got. Later, guys. We got to just do this. That's how the chapters end each one. See you guys later.